Final. The BC Lions home to the Edmonton Eskimos tomorrow afternoon, 4:30 Eastern here on CBC. A reminder, during our first hour today, Ronnie Lancaster will take his weekly look at the Canadian Football League, today coming from the Dome in Vancouver. As usual, we'll be keeping you up to date today on other happenings. Big University Football Championship taking place here in Toronto, McGill Redmond, and the powerful University of British Columbia Thunderbirds. First up, though, from the he'll work tomorrow's game, the BC Lions and the Edmonton Eskimos, along with Don Whitman and Scott Oak. In about 20 minutes from now, Ron Lancaster will have his weekly look at the Eskimos tomorrow afternoon here on CBC Television. That begins at 4:30 Eastern. And speaking of the Canadian Football League, up next, we're going to take you out to the Dome in Vancouver. Ron Lancaster is standing by with his weekly look at the CFL. So stay with us as Sports Weekend continues.
The CFL on CBC. In July, Jim Sandusky's punt return sparked BC to an 8-point victory over Edmonton. In the return match November 1st, Sandusky's last-second TD catch capped a wild Lions rally as they edged the Eskimos. Can BC make it 3 in a row? Tomorrow, under the Dome, watch the Western Final on CBC. Ron Lancaster and the CFL. Brought to you by 3M, proud sponsors of the 1988 Olympic Games.
With me is the head coach of the BC Lions, Coach Larry Donovan. Larry, how important was that win in Edmonton to get home field advantage to you?
Well, it was important enough that we're here, and that's a darn important situation. We are trying to keep all of our fans involved in football, and we think that the BC Lion franchise is a good one. We'd like to have all the games played here that we could possibly play.
Well, I would think so. Now, I hear and I read and things that you've kind of changed the philosophy, so to speak, that you want to run the football more. Could you explain that?
Well, first of all, it's not that we want to run the football more, but we want to put the run back into our football. And when those people can lower their ears and run at Roy every play, that makes it too tough on the offensive line, makes it too tough on him. He's a talented quarterback, and he needs time. And if he gets a little time, then he can do his things.
Well, does he feel better about it? I mean, have you talked to him, and does he enjoy it more? I mean, most quarterbacks like to throw the ball. That's the only reason I was asking.
It's difficult to throw when you're on the ground, and he enjoys very much standing erect and throwing that football. And not only that, he's gotten into this running thing himself a little bit, and he's starting to do some of it.
When you talk the Larry Donovan philosophy, has it changed the BC Lions much, or have you just carried on with things the way they were?
No, you don't change things that are right. I didn't, and I'm not trying, I have no ego trip here. I'm just trying to make sure that the people that I work with, those 4 coaches and myself, can all have our personalities as we did before, and to make sure that the things that we thought we could improve on, we've gone back to the things that we did in camp that we thought were pretty good and that we'd gotten away from.
Okay, when you look back on the Edmonton game, in Edmonton, that more or less was just about a playoff game because you were playing for first place on the line. Now you have another one, the same type, it's just a little bit bigger, that's all. But do you do things the same way, or do you have to make some adjustments for them?
Well, to say you do things the same way, we have to play better in our offensive line, and our offensive line knows that. Edmonton's a very, very physical football team. We got to make certain that we get physical right with them.
Okay, as far as physical, I mean, how do you mean physical? What do you mean when you say
Well, I mean
physical?
that our offensive line's got to punch some holes in there. If we call a running play, we don't want to be stopped before we even get the run started. If we call a pass, we would like to have an opportunity to get the pass off.
When you talk the running game, I assume this would be correct. If you can't run the ball, how much will it hurt your offense?
Well, if you can't run the ball, and the same thing against our defense, if you can't run, you better get ready because here we come.
You can't throw.
That's right.
Well, good luck to you. We'll be right back with head coach Joe Farragelli in a moment. That one, it looked like you had it won and it got away from you. Now you have to come in here to play at the Dome. Does it matter to you playing here?
Oh, yeah, I'd be perfectly honest. I'd like to say no, it doesn't matter, but I'm glad we're still alive and we're going to play, but I would have much preferred to play at home, you know, in our stands, in our field, in our city, and outdoors and the whole bit. Unfortunately, we had to come to the Lions Den, and that's the price you pay for lousing up and losing a ball game.
when you look back on the game and the way you lost it and stuff, and then have to play a semifinal game, were you concerned that maybe your players would look by the Calgary Stampeders?
Actually, there was 2 games before the final. We had to go to Ottawa and play, and I was totally concerned about that one. And I was slightly concerned against Calgary, but my pitch to them was that if you want to play BC, you first have to beat the guys in red. And so I think that kept, in their mind, I'm sure they still thought and really felt bad about losing that game. But I think right now it was, you got to beat Calgary if you want to take another shot at it. And even then, we have to go here to play, and that's difficult.
When they talk about looking forward to a team, do you think it stays on their mind this long? I know it was 2 weeks ago, but do you think it'll still be on their mind that they did lose to them at home and they have something to prove? Do you think that particular game, or is it just this is the final?
Well, I think it's a combination. But, it's like anything in life, when you think about something and it slips away from you and it never really leaves. I'd be perfectly honest, 10 years from now, if I'm still alive and somebody says, this team has to win to get to the final, the BC game will come to my mind. It'll never leave my mind. Never, never, never. And I'm sure that's the same with the ball players. But the most important thing right now is we have to win. If not, we got a wind-up party, and that's the end of the year. So we'll party, I'd like to delay it as long as possible.
When you play the BC Lions now, they seem to be talking more about they want to put the run back in football. Do you approach them a little different as far as defensively goes?
Well, actually, the last time we played them, the week before they played Calgary, and they ran for like 215 yards. And then they came into our place, and they didn't run as well, I guess, as they wanted. But actually, they didn't try to run it. I thought, they kind of got away from what they wanted to do. And then last week, again, they got over 200 yards running the balls against what I think is a pretty good defensive team, Saskatchewan Roughriders, with that front four. And so I got a feeling they're going to try to run the ball on us. And part of the reason you want to run is that I think when they ran against Calgary before our game, they had the ball 40 minutes out of the 60. So I think, they would love to keep the ball away from Matt Dunnigan. And I think that would be a good way of doing it. I only wish that I could run for 200 yards. Yeah. And then it would be an old-fashioned game where we knock heads for 60 minutes. But unfortunately, that's not the makeup of our team. So we're going to try spring Dunnigan as many times as possible, because I know they're going to pin their ears back, come at us, and Matt's got the green light. The minute they come upfield like that and you see the crease, take it. Because they play a lot of man, and it'll give us an opportunity to run for 20, 30 yards. And hopefully keep them off balance.
Well, when the Edmonton BC games always take place, are good football games. Joe, congratulations on a fine season, and hope it continues tomorrow. It should be a good one.
Not that fine yet. We got another game yet. Then I'll let you know. Thank you.
Okay. Don't forget, CBC, 4:30 Eastern, Edmonton and BC Lions for the Western title.
Ron Lancaster and the CFL. Brought to you by 3M, proud sponsors of the 1988 Olympic Games.
And just a further reminder, we'll be seeing Ron Lancaster, Don Whitman, and Scott Oake tomorrow afternoon at the Western Final. That is a 4:30 Eastern start, a 1:30 start for you people in the Pacific time zone. By late tomorrow, we will know which team, Winnipeg or Toronto, will represent the East in the Grey Cup matchup. Grey Cup week officially begins Wednesday. CBC Sports, of course, the place to be. Will feature many of the activities on Sports Weekend next Saturday. I'll be out there to report from the Dome. And, of course, we have Countdown and the game on Sunday. For the telecast Sunday, I'm very happy to be joining Scott Oake, Don Whitman, and Ron Lancaster. All right. Coming up during the next 4
November 29th on CBC, it's Grey Cup Sunday. Countdown captures the festivities and excitement of Grey Cup week leading to the big game. The CFL celebrates its 75th season. BC, Edmonton, Winnipeg, and Toronto look to succeed Hamilton as champion of the CFL. Catch Countdown and the game next Sunday on CBC.
coverage of the Royal Winter Fair, the equestrian competition. We have Esso Cup swimming, a preview of that event. Also, I will be in Vancouver. I'll be reporting from under the dome. We'll take a look at some of the Grey Cup week activities and festivities. And of course, we will preview the game. CBC definitely the place to be 1 week from tomorrow for Grey Cup 87. I'll be in Vancouver to join our broadcast crew of Whitman, Lancaster, and Oak. That about wraps it up for this afternoon. Again, the Canadian horses, a fleet never a factor in the classic race in the Breeders' County.
You are looking live at BC Place in Vancouver. 3 weeks ago, 750 miles to the east in Edmonton, the BC Lions stole first place from the Eskimos on Jim Sandusky's last-second touchdown. The Lions believed even then they would play the Eskimos again this season. They do today. The rematch is the Western Final at BC Place. The road to the Grey Cup continues on CBC Sports.
CBC Sports presents the CFL on CBC.
The Edmonton Eskimos began the season with Jackie Parker as head coach, but illness forced him to retire. Joe Farragelli took over. His offense has broken CFL records, thanks in large part to receiver Brian Kelly, who already owns a prominent place in CFL history. The BC Lions began the season with Don Matthews, but the winningest head coach in Lions history was fired and replaced by Larry Donovan. Donovan's defense is the stingiest in the CFL, led by two Shenley finalists, rush end Greg Stuman and safety Nelson Martin. Today, it's a showdown in the Wild West. Donovan's defense against Farragelli's offense. Under the dome that is BC Place. We welcome our viewers, wherever you may be, to the CFL on CBC, your Grey Cup network, coast to coast.
CFL on CBC. Brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Breweries. The CFL, it's the game around here. Petro-Canada dealers and agents. Our energy is Canada. And by Air Canada, celebrating 50 years of serving Canadians at home and around the world.
We are set to decide a Grey Cup finalist here. The other has just been decided. A few moments ago in Winnipeg, the Argos completed a 19-3 victory over the Bombers in the Eastern Final. Our focus now is the Western Final, and consensus is the Lions and Eskimos are about as evenly matched as their last meeting would indicate. That was a single-point victory with no time left on the clock in favor of BC. The Eskimos know this is their last chance for revenge. Don?
Well, Scott, despite the fact they lost both regular season games to the BC Lions, there is a quiet air of confidence in the camp of the Edmonton Eskimos. If they're successful this afternoon, however, Matt Dunnigan, their quarterback, will have to solve the #1 defensive unit in the league.
Well, I think quarterbacks have always got to solve tough defenses, but the Lions especially. Matt Dunnigan has got to be able to find room up the middle and to escape outside if he's going to be effective against them. Roy DeWalt, on the other hand, here's a guy that has probably played with more composure and at ease. He seems more relaxed than I've ever seen him, and he's even running with a football, and that's probably why Carnage Holloway is now dressed.
Two little men will play big roles in their respective teams' passing attack. Brian Kelly led the league in yardage. He had 13 touchdown catches. Jim Sandusky put it in the end zone 12 times for the BC Lions.
Well, Don, defense is going to decide the outcome of this game. And when you get into the secondary, Nelson Martin patrols the middle about as well as anybody in the league. He's a very, very tough individual. He needs to make big plays. Stanley Blair is definitely going to be tested. You got to go after the rookie in the big games, and this is where he will earn his keep. He's had a good year so far. And in order for the secondary to be effective, you got to get pressure on the quarterback, and that's Stuart Hill and Greg Stuman. That's their strength.
Well, they say that defense wins championships, and the BC Lions feel that will carry them into the Grey Cup game 1 week from today. Let's rejoin Scott.
Well, Don, as we speak, the Argos are in the visitors' locker room at Winnipeg Stadium celebrating their 19-3 victory over the Bombers in the Eastern Final. At halftime and inside the CFL, we'll go to the victorious locker room and hear from the winning head coach, Bob Ovilovich, whose team is in the Grey Cup. We'll also have a feature report on the newest Eskimo hero, Bub Slug. He's a comic strip hero, but popular nonetheless. We'll kick off the Western Final on your Grey Cup network in a moment.
It is a pleasant late November afternoon on the West Coast with a temperature of 9 degrees, but rain is forecast for later today. Inside the dome, conditions just perfect as referee Jake Ireland and his officiating staff move into position to get this Western Division final underway, with the BC Lions preparing to kick off to the Edmonton Eskimos. Stephan Jones and Henry the Gizmo Williams are back for this opening kickoff. The quarterbacks, DeWald and Dunnigan, stay loose at their respective benches. The ball kicked away, not unexpectedly, from Williams. It goes to Stephan Jones, and he has a good return out to the 47-yard line, where he's brought down by Rob Moretto. A 22-yard return by Stephan Jones.
Well, Matt Dunnigan's thrown 4 touchdowns and had 2 intercepted in the games against the BC Lions, and he rushed for 96 yards last week. He needs it today with Skinner and Milson Jones back there. They rushed for about 600 yards each. Excellent set of receivers, all veterans. The offensive line is the key to today's football game.
And as is usually the case under the dome, noise could be a factor. The Eskimos may have some problems calling out signals. The first play from scrimmage as Chris Skinner is dropped for a loss of a couple of yards. Now the Eskimos, in their final practice at home at Commonwealth Stadium, had the loudspeaker system turned up full volume to prepare the players for the conditions they would be competing under the dome.
I think it's great. You got to do things like that. Plus, that noise, for some reason, it helped them have a better practice, let alone a game.
The crowd into this game early. 2nd and 13 for the Eskimos. Dunnigan escapes the initial pressure. There's a penalty flag, and Dunnigan will be into BC territory, what should be a first down, but there was a penalty flag in the backfield. That's usually an indication of holding.
Holding. Edmonton number 62.
You know, Don, that's just what Coach Donovan was telling us the other day at the press conference. They have to keep Dunnigan inside. Don't open those lanes up. He said defense is a team effort. Everybody does their job. Don't let Dunnigan escape.
That negates a first down run by Matt Dunnigan and takes the ball back to the 34-yard line. It will be 2nd and 23.
You know, when that happens to them, they may realize now just what he was talking about and stay in those lanes.
Well, Dunnigan is extremely elusive, and if they don't get him initially, he can duck under, scoot away from that pressure, and turn what should be losses into big gains. Dunnigan is being chased. He can't find the receiver. He'll run it again. And he's forced out of bounds by the middle linebacker, John Elmer.
Boy, he got outside with a lot of time, but you got to give the BC Lions secondary great credit, because look how much time he's got to throw. He just got nobody open. Finally, Ballard and them get after him, and he escapes outside from Stuman. But what's right here? Ballard just gives him a little push just as he's taking a block. But excellent defense on a 2nd and 20. You don't mind him running for 6.
Jerry Cowrick, who has never played under the dome, gets set to launch his first kick from the 25-yard line. He gets great height on his kicks. Coach Joe Farragelli said, "I'm not as concerned about distance as I am about height, but this is a good kick." It's taken by Crawford at the 25-yard line. Crawford is going to lose yardage as he was dropped downfield by Blake Marshall, the rookie out of Western Ontario, who specializes on these punt and kickoff return units. A loss of 5 yards after a 46-yard kick. Let's bring in Scott.
Don, James Bell made the trip to Vancouver with the Eskimos and took his first steps in BC play since being carried from here on a stretcher 14 months ago. James, how did it feel to walk into this building?
Excellent. I feel real good. I feel excited, motivated, and ready to go.
You think you're a source of inspiration to the CFL, you have said?
Definitely. With my comeback I've had within the year, the CFL, there's no way that they can have the same inspiration. I know they can make it. They've been here 74 years. I made it in 1, so let's all make it happen for the CFL.
Okay, James, thanks very much. You're looking great.
Thank you very much.
Don?
Yes, indeed, he is looking great, and he has been a source of inspiration to all of us who have followed his remarkable comeback.
Well, it's great to see him. It seems like every time we see him, he looks better. While we see the BC line, we see those receivers. Corinthi and Pancras, I think, are going to have to work inside. And again, just as we talk about BC, that offensive line's got to do the job for the Lions.
And the crowd quiets as the BC Lion offense with Ray Krause goes looking for a first down, but James Zachary prevents it, so the BC Lions send out their punting unit. We extend our congratulations to Bob Obilovich and the Toronto Argonauts with their 19-3 win this afternoon over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So the Toronto Argonauts will be here at the Dome 1 week from today. Will they be facing the BC Lions or the Edmonton Eskimos in Grey Cup 87, the 75th anniversary of our national championship? And from coast to coast, you'll see it all on the CBC television network. The punt by Pasaglia bounces back towards the line of scrimmage. A scramble for the football. Donovan on the sidelines indicating that Jamie Terrace has it, and it should be a BC first down. We'll sort it all out for you when we return to BC Place. Well, Larry Donovan, the rookie head coach, was pointing on the sidelines indicating that Jamie Terrace had recovered it and the BC Lions should have the football. On the other side, Joe Faragelli was protesting just as vehemently that his squad should have the ball, and in fact the Edmonton Eskimos will have it. The ball at the 46-yard line. It was a scramble for that football, and it may have touched one of the Edmonton punt return people, but at any rate, the Eskimos have the football, and it might have gone off one of them out of bounds before Terrace recovered. Penalty flag on the play. The pass intended for Stephan Jones is incomplete. It looked as though there may have been some early movement by the BC Lions.
Offside. BC for 71.
You know, Don, I think on that punt, what Coach Faragelli's complaining about is he feels if it's their ball, it should have been a no yards. That was his complaint. We'll try to get an official ruling. But these are the guys that got to get after Matt Dunnigan, keep him contained. Glenn Jackson's had another great year. Andre Francis has played Brian Kelly as well as anybody in the league, and I look for him to get right up in his face again and beat him coming off the line.
It will be 1st and 5 after the offside call against Brett Williams. Milson Jones picks up about 3. Walter Ballard made the stop. This has been the #1 defensive unit in the league, although in Toronto there is growing support for that Argo front 7 as the #1 unit, and indeed they played well today as Toronto beat Winnipeg. A good crowd in attendance at BC Place Stadium for this Western Division final, and of course it will be sold out 1 week from today for the Grey Cup game. And I think tickets will really be hard to come by should the BC Lions be going against the Argos.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't care which one of these clubs get there. They better get ready to play 60 minutes.
Milson Jones breaks the tackle. He's got a first down. Milson Jones down to the 31-yard line. The first time they met back on July 18th, early in the ball game, I think on the first offensive series, it was Milson Jones rambling down the sidelines for a 78-yard touchdown that put the Eskimos in front.
Yeah, very first play of the game, it looked like on that particular play, he got in the flat and just took off downfield. But right now, they got a ball control type offense going. They're being able to get that running game going, and that's what Coach Faragelli and Donovan want to do, and that's unusual for BC.
1st and 10 for the Eskimos. They are at the 32 of the BC Lions. 10:02 is the time remaining in this opening quarter. Incomplete. The pass was intended for Rick House. Brian Kelly was going down the sidelines, and he has had some problems this year working against Andre Francis. As you said, the last time they met, he only caught 2 passes.
Well, when you can take Brian Kelly out of that offense, you see, we said get right in his face, because Andre Francis is as fast and as quick as Kelly, and they're going to have that kind of a battle all day.
Even had Kelly been able to get back into play, that pass would not have been legal had it been thrown in his direction, because he had been bumped out of bounds. Donegan throwing, touchdown! Brian Kelly comes right back and snares the throw from Donegan for the major score.
Well, how many times? We've done about 5 or 6 Eskimo ball games this year, and every time we talk about them, you have to take Kelly out of the offense. This time they roll Donegan to his right. He gets outside, and Brian Kelly's way to his left, and he goes down, starts to the inside. When he goes back to the flag, nobody has a better move. He splits the seam, he gets wide open, and that's an easy touchdown for the Eskimos.
An amazing individual is Brian Kelly, 9 years in the league, and he spent the offseason this year at running school trying to improve his speed.
Well, that's a guy who wants to play football, Don. There's always time to learn.
The point after by Jerry Cowrick, and with the touchdown by Brian Kelly, with 9:32 remaining in the first quarter, the Eskimos lead 7-0.
You know, we talk about the noise in the dome, and when you're playing the Lions, if you want to get that crowd out of the game, hit them with something like this early. An excellent pattern by Brian Kelly. When you roll to one side of the field, you're almost assured of a pattern like that backside if you get the chance to throw it, because it's a long throw.
Dunnigan got the time to throw, and Kelly was in the clear. Now Bird on the kickoff return, and he runs out of room over in front of that BC Lion bench. They'll spot the ball at the 34-yard line. Chris Johnston forced him out of bounds after a 13-yard run back.
Well, we talk about that Eskimo defense. 18 quarterback sacks for Stuart Hill, but John Mandrich has played well in the last month, seems like for me. The linebackers, an excellent crew with Danny Bass, who's been around forever, it seems like, but he gets it done. And an excellent secondary, and Stanley Blair, the rookie, I still think is going to be the key to it.
1st and 10 to Byron Williams. Williams is limited to a gain of about 3 yards by Stanley Blair. Williams was a late season addition to the BC Lions, and he made a big reception in that 33-32 win at Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton, a gain of 57 yards as the BC Lions put that final minute drive together for the winning touchdown. 2nd and 7. To Jan Carinci, and he is going to be stopped short of a 1st down.
Normally, Don, we see those type patterns, that screen outside. We normally see it to the wide receiver. This time they throw it to the slot back, Jan Carinci. But Craig Schaefer, we talked about him earlier. He's a crazy man as a linebacker. I mean, he loves the physical contact. He's right on top of it.
Henry Williams drops back. Tom Richards joining him on the punt return unit. Many times the Eskimos will send just Williams back, but now they have the 2 of them back there as Lou Pasaglia tries to angle it to the sidelines. Picked up there by Williams, and Williams is being chased and dropped for a loss. Rob Moretto was downfield very quickly, and it's rare that you'll see Williams lose yards on a punt return. But BC has had an exceptional year on their special teams. A loss of 7 yards. Scott?
Well, Don, 3 weeks ago in that loss to BC, Henry Gizmo, love those melon jackets, Williams hurt his ribs. That kept him out of the lineup for a game, but since his return, he's watched his ribs carefully by wearing a flak jacket like this. Says he's not tentative at all and told me before the game that he's ready to quiet this very noisy crowd by breaking a run back for a touchdown.
The pass was intended for Chris Skinner. He was being covered by Kevin Konar. It's an incomplete pass.
Ball was thrown a little bit behind Skinner, and had Konar been intent on the football as he was again to the receiver, he may have had a shot at it. But when you got a guy man-to-man and it's your job to get there, you better not let him get by you.
7-0. The Eskimos lead with 7:50 remaining in this opening quarter. It is 2nd and 10. Edmonton, they are on their own 21-yard line. Again, the crowd reacts as Dunnigan attempts to bark out the signals. Again, it's incomplete, intended for Rick House. And over on the sidelines, once again, Andre Francis bumping with Brian Kelly.
Well, you know, they're fun to watch because Francis takes it as a personal challenge to take on Brian Kelly. Now, Kelly comes off. This time, instead of coming up on the line of scrimmage, he waits on him, and then he just crowds into the sideline where he has nowhere to go.
Jerry Carrick stands back at his own 6-yard line. Larry Crawford is the lone punt returner back. You know, we talked about Gizmo Williams and his punt returns. Larry Crawford had 3 this year for the BC Lions.
Well, the BC Lions always, as you mentioned earlier, good on special teams. And Larry Crawford, we've seen him run punts back before, so no surprise.
Crawford looking for that wall. And he was just an inch or 2 from breaking it. Brian Warren was there along with Craig Schaefer to prevent him from going any further than the 50-yard line. A 10-yard run back after a 41-yard kick. Well, the Eskimos haven't had a great deal of success inside the dome. Their best year, 1986, when they won 2 games.
Well, I'll tell you, I think it's tough to play here. The Lions, for some reason, feel they own the dome, and anybody coming in here has got problems.
Of course, last year, in winning 4 times, 3 in the regular season, and once in the playoffs, the Eskimos completely destroyed the Lions. Incomplete. Over the middle, intended for Carinci. He had to go high for that throw from Roy DeWalt. It will be 2nd and 10. Junior Robinson was back there defending.
Well, they get the Eskimos in a zone. They put 3 receivers to the right, and DeWalt rolls to his left. Pankratz goes underneath. Williams clears it deep, and then Carinci tries to come right into the open area. And you see what happened. If he makes the catch, he's going to take the hit. But Jan Carinci at about 205 pounds, a tough slot back.
Movement at the line of scrimmage. Penalty flag try. This could be a free one for DeWalt. Intended for Kraus. He couldn't hang on. It looked as though James Zachary had moved across that 1-yard separation.
Offside. Edmonton number 92.
And indeed it is James Zachary, guilty of the offside call, a Texas A&M product, 6'2", 245 pounds. That's a solid front 4 the Eskimos put out there with Zachary and John Mandarich at the tackle positions, Stuart Hill and either Dan Kearns or Gary Columbus outside.
Well, right here you can see both of them caught inside as that ball starts to move off the line of scrimmage, and that's a penalty every time.
2nd and 5. DeWalt looking downfield for Pankratz. Dropped his fingertips.
Boy, Pankratz got the step on Howard right away. He tried to come up and bump him, and John jumped outside of it. The ball was thrown to the wrong side, but he almost brought it down anyway.
The 2nd leading receiver this year for the Lions, 61 receptions, 2 touchdowns.
So you can see he had maybe a step and a half on him, and boy, if the ball's to the other side, it's an easy completion.
Tom Richards joins Henry Williams on the punt return unit as Lou Pasaglia gets set to kick. Williams takes it at the 5. And he runs out of room up at the 10-yard line. So that's where the Edmonton Eskimos will be scrimmaging with 5:55 left in the opening quarter. In this shootout under the dome, the man on the right is the more experienced, having previously served as an assistant coach in Edmonton, a head coach in Saskatchewan, a head coach in Montreal, an assistant coach in Winnipeg, and now the head man with Edmonton. For Larry Donovan, this is only his 5th game as a head coach with the BC Lions, but he has a perfect record, 4 wins, no losses. Draw play, and not much room inside. The BC Lions very tough to run against.
Especially what they were talking about at practice the other day. The BC Lions want to keep the Eskimos pinned deep so that Dunnigan can't wheel and deal. When you're down inside that 15-yard line, you want to make sure you're a little conservative. Don't take too many chances. And Brett Williams, Coach Barrigelli talked about him at the press conference the other day. He's made a big difference to them. He's got 4 sacks in the 2 games.
2nd down. Dunnigan going deep, looking for Kelly. Incomplete. He had both Nelson Martin and Andre Francis covering him. Dunnigan was fortunate that he was able to get that one away because the Lions were exerting tremendous pressure.
Well, and they kept him contained inside, and that's what you want to do. But what I was laughing about is, you know, you hear about Brian Kelly. We've talked about his no speed, but here he is going deep down the field, and Andre Francis and Nelson Martin are hustling, and they're not staying with him. He was running by him. He was starting to get a step on him.
In any other year, the 3 punt returns for touchdowns by Larry Crawford would equal the old CFL record, but this has been the year of the gizmo. Good high kick by Cowrick, taken by Crawford. He's going to lose some yards here unless he can get back upfield, which he does. He could go all the way. A 37-yard return by Larry Crawford. He was prevented from going all the way by Ron Howard.
Well, he got the height on it, and that's what he wanted. It looks like he's contained, but all of a sudden that little fake allowed him to get outside, and they have it set well. Look at all the orange jerseys. Getting the job done. They forced him to cut back inside, and that allowed him to make the tackle. But that's a big, big play. That gets the crowd back into the ball game now.
Special teams very much a factor for both clubs. Anthony Parker is inside the 10-yard line. That will be a gain of maybe 4. 3 punt returns for touchdowns this year by that man, Larry Crawford. And he has provided the BC Lions with tremendous field position after that 37-yard run back. It will be 2nd and 6 for the Lions. Some much-needed oxygen at that BC bench for Larry Crawford. Special teams are so important, and it's been in about the last 5 years that teams have really worked on those special units, the punt return unit, the kickoff return unit, but more so in the punting game.
It used to be all you wanted to do is kick the ball down the field, have somebody catch the football. If he gains yards, that's a plus. All they want is don't fumble it. But all of a sudden, it became an offensive weapon. And when you get offensive weapons, it takes practice. And you're right. The time that's put in on special teams now, probably the biggest change in the CFL in 10 years.
Well, you talk about the emphasis and the value of one player to a club. The Edmonton Eskimos, with the gizmo, use him almost exclusively on special teams.
Well, that's all he is. I mean, they list him as a backup wide receiver, but I know in the games we've done, I haven't seen him catch a pass, but I have seen him return some punts for touchdowns, and that's what he is, instant field position.
Dan Kearns is out. Gary Columbus in at that defensive end position. 2nd and 6 for the BC Lions. 3:48 remaining in the opening quarter. Fumbled. Recovered by Roy DeWalt. So that will probably mean a field goal attempt by Lou Pasaglia.
I'm not sure that wasn't a pass because of the fact that the play action came this way. But Jan Carinci at the top of the screen goes down and goes back to the corner, and he was all by himself. DeWalt very fortunate to get the ball back.
Roy DeWalt and Conrad Holloway, the 2 BC quarterbacks this afternoon. Unless he has some problems, I think you'll see DeWalt go all the way. I think you'll see this man handle all of the kicking chores, as he has done so successfully, and Lou Pasaglia puts it through as the BC Lions are on the board.
I talked to Lou Pasaglia the other night at that Western dinner where he received the trophy for the scoring leader again, and asked him about a comment he made in the paper that Jerry Carrick would find a little difficulty in kicking inside the dome. And, you know, most people would think, hey, why? It's perfect conditions. So I asked him what he meant. All he meant by it is your technique, your follow-through, everything has to be right because you get no help from the wind. You don't get a 55-yard field goal with the wind. If you kick it 55 yards, you had to do it yourself.
He also made another interesting comment. He said, tell Coach Faragelli that we're going to take the air conditioning in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, he did.
Of course, this year, with the opportunity to defer the choice for the visiting team until the 2nd half, that decision can be extremely important at times, playing out of doors. But here, it really doesn't mean anything. Stephan Jones from the 20 on the kickoff return. He's got speed, just like the gizmo. But his speed is curtailed up at the 51-yard line by Kevin Dixon, a 30-yard run back after a 54-yard kick. Next Sunday, we'll be back at BC Place Stadium for the 75th Grey Cup game. The Toronto Argonauts against either Edmonton or BC, and it all gets underway on CBC television at 3:30 Eastern Time. Check your local listings for the telecast time in your area. The CBC, your Grey Cup network from coast to coast. Flanagan's pass is deflected by Kevin Konar. It will be 2nd and 10.
A little bit high. The throw is high, and the reason for it is number 90, Rick Clausen, comes in and gets the hit on Matt Dunnigan. And when that happens, a lot of times you don't get the proper follow-through. You know that hit's coming. A little bit high.
Joe Faragelli made an interesting comment. He said, despite the fact that we lost both games, I don't think I'd change our game plan for either contest. In the last game, 17 of the BC points were scored with the offense on the bench.
That's why he's not worried about it. He thinks his defense can shut him down, and we're going to find out. This isn't bad.
Jones is open. He's got it. He took it away from Keith Gooch.
Stephan Jones he's got the great speed. He's just really learning to be a receiver after being a quarterback all his life. But when you have the speed that he has, he just ran right by Gooch. The ball's in the air, and it looked like Gooch was going to be able to recover because Jones was definitely behind him, but he just couldn't get it out of his hands.
58 yards for number 78, Stephan Jones, and it's 1st and goal for the Edmonton Eskimos at the BC 2. You'll know only once in the last 15 years has the team that finished first in the West, been defeated in the championship game. That was in 1984. Milson Jones easily trots into the end zone. And the Edmonton Eskimos, with 1:43 remaining in this opening quarter, move in front 13-3 with the point after still to come.
You know what we normally see on plays at the goal line is the lead back going into the hole. Watch this. The Esks block down, and they lead Blake Marshall outside, and he makes a great block, and you see how easy Milson Jones goes in. Nothing to it.
I think even you or I could have possibly taken that one into the end zone, but Joe Farragelli was speaking so positively yesterday about the contribution that Blake Marshall has made with his enthusiasm and his blocking skills. And his hands. They say he's got great hands. I'll tell you one thing, he's a little reckless on those special teams. He does a great job for them. Jerry Cowrick with the point after. 14-3. The Edmonton Eskimos lead the BC Lions. Well, they talked in the Eskimo camp about trying to jump ahead early and silence the anticipated noise from the crowd at the Dome, and I think they've done that. I know this, anytime a football team comes to play on the road at any stadium, if the crowd can be a factor, in which it should be all the time, you got to get them out of it. That means you jump on the home team, and that makes them sit back and relax. The worst thing that could have happened to the Lions was not converting that great punt returner Crawford. Did you see Phil Stevenson leading and then Marshall outside? Don, you're right. I think we could have made it because no one would have looked for us to have the ball anyway. Well, one team that excelled at home this season went down to defeat this afternoon, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. This year, losing just once, that to the Edmonton Eskimos at Winnipeg Stadium, beaten 19-3 in the Eastern Division Final. The BC Lions with an identical record under the Dome. 8 wins and just 1 loss here. That loss to the Calgary Stampeders, the final game as a head coach for Don Matthews back on October 11th. You know, Don, we've had the opportunity to watch the Argonauts for about the last month, and that they are a good football club. Don't let anybody tell you anything differently. Mal Bird on the kickoff return. He tried to get to the outside, but Brian Warren and John Mandarich were having none of that. Scott?
Well, Don, BC Lions starting quarterback Roy DeWalt is back in the game, but look at his left thigh, and you'll notice that it's been taped. He pulled a hamstring a couple of weeks ago against Saskatchewan. Lions didn't play for 2 weeks, so they were hoping DeWalt was fully recovered, but the hamstring has bothered him early in this game. Well, if it does prove to be a continuing problem, I think we'll see Conrad Holloway enter the ballgame. Oh, yeah, Coach Donovan said he'll put Holloway in at any time. It's no problem with him. Good fake by DeWalt. Now he's looking deep. And it is a good 10 to 15 yards away from Byron Williams, the intended target. DeWalt was throwing to the sidelines, and Williams was breaking to the post. That's just what I was going to say. I don't know whether he was throwing to Byron Williams, who went down and went to the post, or Jan Carinci, who went out to the sideline and maybe was going to turn upfield, but couldn't because the Eskimo was there. But regardless, it wasn't near either one of them. 2nd and 10. The ball is at the 45-yard line. 1:14 remaining in this opening quarter. To be successful, the BC Lions must get a ball game out of Roy DeWalt. He completes the pass to Carinci, or to Pankratz, I should say. A gain of about 8 yards. It will be 2 yards shy of a first down. Pankratz was a little bit short of the 1st and 10 when he caught the football. But then he caught it and started back, and he gave it up. And now they're only going to be about 6.5, 7 yards. So they're going to have to punt the football. He was short anyway. You know, that's a tough thing, but those receivers have got to get that first down on 2nd and 10. Lou Pastaglia established a CFL scoring record this season, breaking the old mark of Trevor Kennard's. Good high punt. Williams waits for it, and the BC Lions wait for him. He had nowhere to go. I mean, the orange jerseys were all around him, regardless whether he tried to run wide or up the middle. There were 4 of them sitting there. Wayne Durbin and Jamie Terrace were the first 2 downfield, and it was a loss of 3 for the Gizmo after a 38-yard kick. At the 18-yard line, 1st and 10 for the Edmonton Eskimos with 30 seconds remaining in the opening quarter. The Eskimos leading by a score of 14-3. Milton Jones and Brian Kelly with the touchdown. Delegan is intercepted by Kevin Konar.
Don, this has always been a favorite pattern of the Eskimos. House will go up the seam or to the inside. Kelly will start out and then run a curl, and then they send it back in the flat. But look where Dunnigan's looking right into the curl zone every time. Konar just went back and got underneath it.
First and 10 for the BC Lions. The ball at the 33-yard line. This should be the final play of the opening quarter as the pitch goes to Ray Krause, and he picks up 2 yards. Unless there's a penalty flag, and I don't see one, that should be the end of the opening quarter as time has run out on the scoreboard clock. And there's the gun to signal the end of the opening quarter at BC Place Stadium. Well, it's been a bit of a roller coaster for the fans at BC Place Stadium. Loud and boisterous at various times, and then quieted by the 2 touchdowns, first by Brian Kelly and then Milson Jones. But with the interception by Kevin Konar, they are right back in it.
Second and long. This is where they have to convert. Got to block.
Oh, what a hit as Kevin Dixon is belted by Don Wilson.
Right there's an example. I can remember when we went to do our first game, and Coach Faragelli was talking about Wilson and what he liked. He says, what I like, he's 6'2", and he's about 205 pounds, and he's very, very physical. Well, you get a good look at it.
Very punishing, the hit by Wilson on Kevin Dixon, and that means Lou Pasaglia comes into the ball game again. A league record 52 field goals this season.
You know, Kevin Dixon is 230 pounds, and you saw how easily Wilson dropped him, so he is physical.
And Lou Pasaglia displays just why he led the league in scoring, his second field goal from 33 yards out. And it's 14-6 with 14-17 remaining in this second quarter. The Western Division final, the winner advancing to the Grey Cup game 1 week from today against the Toronto Argonauts. In case you missed it, Toronto defeating Winnipeg in the Eastern final today, 19-3. And at halftime, we'll be going to that victorious Toronto Argonaut dressing room. We'll be hearing from Coach Bob Obilovich and some of the players. The Edmonton Eskimos, as one would suspect, leading by a score of 14-6, had the advantage offensively, statistically, in that opening quarter. But those turnovers have played a key role throughout the season for the BC Lions. I think on almost 1/3 of their touchdowns this year, the Lions' offense has been sitting on the bench.
I was just going to say, you know, when you kick 52 field goals, you're not putting the ball into the end zone, and we've seen that twice today.
Nelson Martin brings down Henry Williams out at the 43-yard line. A 14-yard run back after a 46-yard kick. What Ron Lancaster alluded to earlier, it's so important for the BC Lions to stay in their lanes to defend against Dunnigan. And that is what Larry Donovan has been emphasizing in preparation for this game. Stay in your lanes, and if I have to repeat it again, stay in your lanes.
That's just the way he put it, and it's important.
Well, they stayed in their lanes that time, as Chris Skinner is limited to a gain of about 1. Brett Williams, the bottom man in the pileup. Glenn Jackson, the veteran linebacker, this season played extremely well, earning an all-star selection, and deservedly so.
You know, it just keeps going. You know, I don't know. Every time we talk to him, he keeps talking about how he's getting older, but I think he's getting better. I think he should keep playing.
14-6 is the score. Pressure on Donovan, and Glenn Jackson is there.
You know, Don, usually when you stay in your lane, somebody's going to block you, but watch Jackson. Nobody touches him. It's just a race to see if Dunnigan can get out of the way. He had no chance at all. That's just great defense.
They come at you with so many different defensive schemes, blitzing Glenn Jackson this time as he moved from his outside position into the middle.
Quarterbacks don't like to see that either. Tell that outside linebacker to get outside where he belongs.
Cowaric's third down kick as he stands back at the 20-yard line. Good high punt. Crawford has to go back to his own 23. And again, he tries to go wide, and they set up that blocking wall. But getting through to break it up once again is Ron Howard, the man who prevented Crawford from going for a touchdown the last time. The BC Lions led the league in quarterback sacks, and that man, number 45, Greg Stuman, was the best with 23. The number 1 man for the Edmonton Eskimos was Stuart Hill, but as a team, the Eskimos were last in the Canadian Football League. Anthony Parker with a hole and a first down, bursting his way out to the 44-yard line.
You know, if you want to run the football, you have to stay with it. They tried running early. The Eskimos shut them down. But if you're going to be successful running, stay with it. And this is exactly what they do. Right up behind Sinclair on the draw. John Blaine makes his block, and then it's just up to the back to get what he can.
First and 10 from the 44-yard line. The hip screen to Sandusky. Pancraft trying to block, but there were too many Eskimos defending. Ron Howard makes the tackle. It's amazing when you put Sandusky and Brian Kelly side by side. They're not that big, but they have those great moves and the speed.
The quickness with the speed is the important thing for them. They don't have the 4.2 speed, but they got good speed. So if you get them going the wrong way, then your quickness to get separation, that's the key.
Second and 7, over the middle. First down as Anthony Parker, anticipating, I think, a hit, tried to duck under, and he did. They're waving off the pass to Parker, ruling that he didn't have control of the ball when he went down.
Well, I
thought he did.
Yeah, I would disagree with this call. That's the referee overruled, and that's great because you're exactly right. He's coming back. They put 3 receivers to the right, bring them over, and then bring Parker under, and you're going to run right into number 20. He's going to be waiting for you.
Oh, he had control, no question.
He knew number 20 Wilson's waiting on him. He spun back to the inside. He's smart.
First down at midfield. Ray Krause is hit right at the line of scrimmage.
You know, Don, you were talking about how the Eskimos are last in sacks in the CFL, and one of the reasons for it, it's the style of defense that they play. They play a more normal defense, and what normal I mean is when they blitz, they only bring a linebacker. They rush those big 4 guys up front. They don't bring halfbacks a lot. They are content to say, okay, we're not going to put the pressure on you as much, but you got to beat us. You have to earn it.
Jamie Terrace replaces Ray Krause. Pass to the sidelines intended for Sandusky, incomplete. Steve Benjamin was over and did a good job defending. So the BC Lions will be forced to kick it away.
And John Pancratz is going to go talk to Roy DeWalt, because I think if they get him into that set again where Sandusky goes down and out, Pancratz again had Howard beat deep, but good coverage. You see that left hand? That left hand comes in there, bats it away.
Henry Williams has had some problems in this game trying to return kicks, as the Lions have done an excellent job of covering. This time Tom Richards will try it, and Williams makes the block for Richards, but then Jamie Terrace, with help from Steve Durbin, brings him down at the 19-yard line, a 10-yard run back after a 47-yard kick. They did some hand-eye tests on members of the Edmonton Eskimos this year, and the man with the quickest reactions was number 25, Tom Richards, possibly explaining why he does so well as a punt returner.
Well, because once he starts to move, if you open the seam at all, he can see it, his eyes see it, and then the feet react. You don't run with your feet alone. You run with the eyes also.
Grey Cup Countdown begins next Sunday at 3:30 on CBC television. Your Grey Cup network, coast to coast. Stephan Jones is caught by Keith Gooch. A first down out to the 30-yard line.
I know the BC Lions wanted to force Matt Dunnigan to start deep in his own end and make him throw the ball downfield. And sure enough, the first quarter, we saw Dunnigan throw it down the field a long way with good success. Now he's got him backed off. Now he can go to the hooks underneath.
9:40 remaining in the first half. 14-6. The Eskimos lead the Lions. The ball is at the 30-yard line. 1st and 10 Edmonton. I think they were trying to go quickly inside to Rick House, but Kevin Konar was one of 4 Eskimo defenders who were in that area.
Yeah, watch him. He's just kind of sitting, and they try to dump it, as you say, to House. There's no doubt about it. If Konar had been able to get both hands up, he'd have had it and been gone.
He's played a solid game so far, and he too was a Western Division All-Star.
Well, he's played well for them in all the years. You know, he's been in this league now 8 years. You know, time flies for these guys, but he does a great job for the Lions.
Just a little too far for Rick House. Good fake by Dunnigan as he indicated that he was looking to the sidelines and then came over the top to Rick House, but it was just a little too far for the slot back.
Well, you see Rick again has the step on Crawford. Nelson Martin, who normally would be in the middle coming over to help, he is up taking somebody man-to-man, and that forced Mel Bird to come from the backside a long way.
Larry Crawford, an Iowa State product, signed as a free agent in 1981, sent to return this kick by Jerry Cowrick. Well, if he was going to get any yards that time, he had to do it all on his own because there was no wall set up to the right. There was also a penalty flag on the play.
A knee injury kept James Quick Parker out of the BC lineup until 3 weeks ago, but he's out again. Was it a question of conditioning, James, soon?
No, what he's wanted me to do is just practice and work on it some more and get ready for next week if things turn out right.
You'll say you'll play next week?
Yes.
If the Lions are in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we definitely planned on that.
All right, good luck.
All right.
James Quick Parker, and whether it's early in the morning, an afternoon practice, late in the evening, or at a football game, he always looks as though he stepped out of a fashion magazine.
Boy, sure does.
One of his teammates remarked, "I don't think Quick owns a pair of blue jeans." Sideline pattern intended for Byron Williams. He was being covered by Stanley Blair. It will be 2nd and 10 from the 51.
I'll get the speed on the rookie and send him deep, and let's take one shot at it. If we don't hit it, that's okay. We got 2nd down.
He'll be going against Gil the Thrill Fennerty for the Rookie Award in the Shenley balloting. Fennerty will be here for 2 purposes: the Grey Cup game and the Shenley Awards. Blair would also like to be here on a double mission.
I would think so. Better get ready for this one. Everybody test him again.
Carinci, 1st down.
You see Wilson get up holler. Now, Wilson thinks Carinci pushed off of him, which he may have. I didn't see it. But that's what he was talking to the official about. He got back inside him into the open area, and that's the one place Wilson can't afford to let him get to.
Well, Jan Carinci is one who would certainly like to be in a Grey Cup game, facing some of his old Argo teammates.
I think you might enjoy that one.
He, of course, was with the Argos when they won a Grey Cup game right here at BC Place Stadium in 1983, defeating the BC Lions. Anthony Parker picked up just 1 yard. The BC Lions have had problems in their last few games getting the ball into the end zone, particularly against the Eskimos.
All you have to do is look at the number of field goals Pasaglia has tried this year. He's hit 52 of them, which you said was a new record. The Eskimos, on the other hand, lead the league with 70 touchdowns, and the Lions have only scored 48. So it's been a problem all year for them, but especially against this club.
7:18 remaining in the half. On 2nd and long, DeWalt can't find his initial receiver. He's about a yard short of a 1st down. You know what a lot of people forget is that when he played at Texas Arlington, he was initially recruited by a number of teams as a running back.
That's what he was drafted by. I believe it was the Cleveland Browns drafted him as a running back, and that's what they wanted him to play. And the reason he came to Canada is he wanted to be a quarterback. Now, I think they better send out the oxygen because he ran an awful long way. And I tell you, when they're chasing him, that heart pumps twice as hard. This is a great move. He runs a little spinorama and finds a hole inside. And as you said, they're going to be about 2 yards short. I think they ought to go ahead and kick the field goal.
Well, it's interesting how different coaching staffs react to how they want their personnel to perform. Under Don Matthews, there seemed to be a feeling that DeWalt would not run, that he was under instructions to throw the football, take the loss, but do not run. It appears as though Larry Donovan has a bit of a different philosophy, because in the last few games, he has been running the ball more than previously.
It's exactly the way it was all for the whole time of DeWalt's career, really. But now, all of a sudden, what Coach Donovan said, Roy, look, you're old enough to take care of yourself. If you want to run with the football, and that's what it's going to take for us to win, then you go ahead and do it.
Well, they spot the ball just outside the 25-yard line. It looked as though DeWalt had stretched inside the 25 and was only about a yard away from a first down, but apparently that was not the case. However, the BC Lions are leaving their offensive unit out there. Joe Farragelli is protesting. He felt that the BC Lions should not be allowed to make a change now, but they have sent out their regular offensive unit.
Okay. Excuse me. BC has their big guys in there. This is a short yardage team, so Farragelli countered with his defensive team to stop them, and then the Lions sent the receivers out, but the referee wouldn't allow them to stay. So now they got their jumbo team or their big club in there.
All sorts of movement at the line of scrimmage. Is it a procedure call or offside? Jan Carinci was in the end zone all by himself.
Procedure. BC.
Well, the end result of all that confusion should satisfy Joe Farragelli, because now the BC Lions will be forced to send out the field goal unit.
See, what happens is Edmonton put their big guys in to stop the run, and when the Lions put in their receivers again, now Farragelli, when you take those guys out, it's going to be the secondary. He needs them back in there to cover the receivers, so it's like a chess game. Who can get the last substitution in hockey, I guess. But the referee said that's enough of that. He sent him out of the game.
Well, fortunately for Farragelli, there was that illegal procedure call, because there was nobody within 20 yards of Jan Carinci in the end zone. Bisaglia's field goal attempt is wide, and Junior Robinson lets it roll through the end zone for a single point, a 37-yard single, and just a converted touchdown separates the two Western finalists with 6:06 remaining in the half. Well, at halftime, we'll be having a direct report from the dressing room of the Eastern champion Toronto Argonauts. We'll be hearing from Coach Bob Obilovich and quarterback Gilbert Renfro. Highlights and statistics, and a feature on a cartoon character called Buff the Slug from Edmonton. Edmonton leading by a score of 14-6. Milson Jones fumbles the football. Who's got it? BC.
Again, now the Lions have the opportunity to put a touchdown on the board. Milton Jones starts on tackle, bounces to the outside. Coming up to hit him from the outside is Ulmer, number 76, and they have the ball. They can't afford another field goal. They've got to show the Eskimos they can score. You see the ball loose. Great turnover. And why not? Their defense has done it all year.
Well, our reverse angle camera providing us with a good view at that fumble and the recovery by the BC Lions, and of course we'll have that reverse angle camera to bring you all the highlights in the Grey Cup game 1 week from today. Gary Columbus prevented Roy DeWalt from finding anybody in the end zone, and this is a continuing story and a continuing problem for the BC Lions.
Well, with the Eskimos, like we didn't mention Columbus as a starter, but they rotate their defensive linemen. And as you can see, he came from the inside all the way around. So they executed a stunt where the end goes down, tackle comes out. But Zachary's the guy that's resting on the sidelines now.
2nd and 16. Incomplete. Byron Williams was being covered by Stanley Blair, but it was, I think, John Pankratz who went up high for that football.
Well, the BC Lions love that pattern. We talked about it earlier. 3 receivers, and watch Carinci. Carenci's the guy that's deep. Williams is going deep. He gets the official. I think that's Jock the Carey. I had breakfast with him this morning, had a nice talk with him, try to get some rules explained, and I figure he knows a heck of a lot better than I do.
He's the field judge this afternoon. Many times he has worked as the head referee. Surprisingly, Lou Pasaglia has a better record outside the dome than inside, and this 48-yarder falls short. And the Gizmo tries to stay in bounds, but then is forced out as Ray Krause takes him out of bounds at the 20-yard line. You know, in talking to Pasaglia, he said one of the reasons he probably has a better record outside the dome, which comes as a surprise, is the fact that inside the dome, you attempt more field goals because there are no wind factors. Outside the dome, if you're kicking into a strong wind, you don't try them from as great a distance. And, of course, when you've got the wind with you, your chances of making them are better.
That's right. He's kicking under ideal conditions, and that's what he doesn't like. You know, he says he'd like to get the chance to kick with the wind at his back once in a while.
Do you really believe that?
No.
I think he'd like to stay right here inside the dome. Keith Gooch forcing Stefan Jones out of bounds. Joe Farragelli, in talking about this game, so there's really no mystery. I'm not going to use any emotional speeches, Newt Rockney type of deliveries, or win this one for the Gipper. And he said, nor do I plan having a heart attack so they can say, let's win this one for Farragelli. Chris Skinner, a good run for a gain of about 7 before being stopped by Brett Williams. I said when Roy DeWalt was tackled earlier by Columbus that it's a continuing story and a continuing problem for the Lions. When you look at the turnovers they have created, the punt return by Larry Crawford, they have to come up with more than 7 points.
Well, you know, you only get X number of chances to put points on the board, and every time you waste one and have to take the field goal, it's going to catch up to you. Now, they've been down there, what, 3 or 4 times. It might be closer to 4, and have yet to put it in the end zone from great field position.
3:24 remaining in the half. Second down play, and Milson Jones gets out across the 40. He then is driven back, but his forward progress will reward the Eskimos with another first down.
The BC Lion defensive line now, I think they'll concentrate on rushing the quarterback, which will maybe open the seams now for guys like Milson Jones, Chris Skinner, Blake Marshall, whoever they happen to have in there at the time. And when you do that, what you're telling them is that if they can run the football and beat us, then they're a better club than we are. We'll let our linebackers make the tackles, but you guys up front concentrate on number 16.
Well, wherever you're looking in this afternoon on the CBC television network, we hope you're enjoying the action from BC Place Stadium and that you'll be with us as well next Sunday for Grey Cup 87. The CBC, your Grey Cup network coast to coast. Brett Williams dumps Dunnigan for a loss back at the 32-yard line. 2:44 is the time remaining in the first half under the dome.
Dunnigan rolls to his left. It looks like he's going to throw the football, but watch, he has to pull it down, and when he pulls it down, Brett Williams is there to knock him down. That's an excellent defense.
Well, the toaster may have been burning on that one, but Larry Donovan was burning over at that BC bench because there was an unsportsmanlike conduct call against the BC Lions, wiping out the quarterback sack, giving Edmonton a first down at the 50-yard line. Here's the reverse with Tom Richards. Quite a collision with John Ulmer coming over from his linebacking position to hit Richards, but he'll have a gain of 8 yards.
The kind of play will give you a headache. They run that reverse backside. We're going to get a good look at it from this. You see Dunnigan coming. Now, he gives the ball to Richards. Now, watch Richards when he comes around the corner. He tries to cut in on Andre Francis and goes up in the air, but watch the collision with John Ulmer. Right there in midair. When those helmets hit, you get a lot of ringing.
The ball is at the BC 52 with 2:22 remaining in the half. Second and 2 for the Eskimos. Milson Jones won't get it. Glenn Jackson, who has been solid, the veteran linebacker, coming up to make the tackle.
When it's second down, 3 yards to go, and you're expecting run, and they got the full house backfield, 2 halfbacks and a fullback, Glenn Jackson went for penetration, and that's a good job because now the back has to make a decision. And he made the wrong one because he ran into Jackson.
14-7 the score as Jerry Cowrick prepares to kick it away to Larry Crawford. Crawford showing some respect for the young kicker for the Edmonton Eskimos, standing back at his own 5-yard line. He's taking all sorts of time, angling it back into the middle of the field. It bounces, and Crawford is fortunate to get it back. There are penalty flags. I thought initially that Crawford may have touched that ball as he came up trying to field it.
Well, you know what happens on this, Don? Cowrick had so much time that they didn't rush him, so he just stood there and held the football, and then when the rush came, he kicks it. But that gets your cover team too close to the receiver, and he didn't kick it that far.
Edmonton number 47.
Larry Ruck encroached upon the 5 yards, but when that ball came down, I thought it had touched Crawford.
It probably did. You know, I'll bet it did touch him, but you're inside the 5-yard restraining zone, you're going to get the penalty. So this is one time where the kicker took too long to kick the football.
When he had all that time back there with Tom Richards flanked out wide, I thought he was going to try and angle it towards the sidelines and try and hit Richards going down those sidelines because he would have been eligible.
Oh, yeah, he was eligible. I was watching Richards out here because he's got great speed. You know, he doesn't need much room, and if you can get it to him, he can go a long way.
Byron Williams on the sidelines, and he's brought down by Stanley Blair. 1:45 remaining in the half. Following the game, we will be selecting the Canada Lease MVP. Canada Lease, a Canadian public company providing leadership in the world of high technology and capital equipment leasing. Canada Lease makes your money work better for you. The Lions trying to employ that hurry-up offense. 2nd and 2. The second man through. Anthony Parker gets the first down.
This is where DeWalt can call on the experience now, being a veteran quarterback. Parker's hurt. He'll leave the ball game. This is why Donovan has 4 running backs on the roster. With 1:38 left, DeWalt, the veteran that he is, can use this clock to his advantage, and he desperately needs a touchdown.
Ideally, they want a touchdown, but they would settle for anything before going to the dressing room. Jack Carinci has been the big play man in their passing game this afternoon.
Well, we said when we were talking about him earlier that they needed to get a big game from them because everybody expects Sandusky and Williams to be the big one. Get him right inside. Now, he wants to throw the out to this side, to his left. It's not there. Carinci comes into the hole and makes the catch.
Back to the live action, to the sidelines for Byron Williams, incomplete. Stanley Blair has done a good job of defending, and Williams does not react kindly to the push that he took going out of bounds. We said 2 plays back that Anthony Parker appeared to injure that right arm. It appears to be the elbow. At least that's the area that he is attempting to massage.
You know, we talked in the opening. He tried to throw the out on Benjamin to this side. He jumped on it. The very next play, they go to the out on Stanley Blair, and they had room to throw it. But that's the rookie. You've got to test him.
2nd and 10. DeWalt looking for Jamie Terrace. He couldn't hang on. And he was open.
Wide open. And he'll be wondering about that one. You don't get him thrown any better. It's stuck between the 2 and the 3. Boy, look at this throw. Right between that 2 and 3. And he sees that linebacker coming and doesn't hang on to that ball. May as well catch it. You're going to get hit anyway.
A product of Western Ontario. Henry Williams out of East Carolina, 5'8", 165 pounds, waiting for the 3rd down punt by Lou Pasaglia. Penalty flags go down. No yards will be charged against Kevin Dixon.
You know, we're talking about Jamie Terrace. If you think back to one game where Edmonton and Winnipeg were playing, and Rob Paven and Marshall were collided, we said that, you know, that they probably met before. I got a letter from a high school football coach in Guelph that Marshall, Terrace, and Paven all grew up together, played football, sandlot football, and on the same high school team. So I guess they have run into one another somewhere along the line.
Well, if they all played on the same team, they certainly had quite a minor league background, and the fellow who coached them all must have done quite a job to eventually see them all wind up in professional football.
I think you should send me a letter and tell me whether they won the championship, because those are 3 good ones.
1:08 remaining in the half. 1st and 10 from the 30-yard line. Donegan is going deep for Stefan Jones. touchdown pass. Dunnigan to Stephen Jones, and what a big play, man. He has been, much to the dismay of Larry Donovan. A 58-yard reception that set up a touchdown in the first quarter, an 80-yard touchdown catch here in the second.
You know, the BC Lions wanted to force Dunnigan to throw the ball downfield. Well, he's shown them that he can do it. You don't throw it any better. Stephen Jones is overshadowed by Brian Kelly as a receiver, by the Gizmo as a kick returner. But I'll tell you what, he can play on most football clubs. He's second in kickoff returns, and he shows you he has the speed. This is no contest. He just went by Gooch like he was standing still.
Well, there is no substitute for speed, as Stephen Jones clearly demonstrated in putting it in the end zone, and Jerry Cowrick adds the point after. There are penalty flags, but I think it will be offside BC. So the conversion will stand, and with that touchdown, it is going to be 21-7 with 59 seconds left in the half.
Outside. BC number 18. Decline. Convert's good.
You know, when you think about this football game and what has happened today.
Hey, Mom, Dad.
How you doing? They have done a great job on long, big plays, the Eskimos. The BC Lions have been down there 4 times, have yet to cross the goal line. And right now, we said the Walt had 1 minute and 38 seconds to score, and look who puts the points on the board. They're making it tough on themselves if you're a Lions fan, but he's got the steps on him, and with the speed, Gooch doesn't have a chance.
Well, we said just a few plays back that the BC Lions ideally wanted to end the half with a touchdown of their own, but they would have been content to at least put something on the board. Look what happens. The Edmonton Eskimos get the touchdown, the 80-yard strike from Matt Dunnigan to Stephen Jones. And I hearken back to Joe Farragelli's comments. He said, when you look back in the 2 regular season games, we would not have changed a thing in the way we played the BC Lions. We had a good offensive scheme. It was turnovers and giveaways that hurt us. Malbert is stopped at the 41-yard line. 17 of those 33 points in that game that decided first place in the final meeting between these two were scored while the BC offense was on the bench.
Well, that's what you're talking about. Coach Farragelli said the reason he wouldn't change it, he said, we have a great plan defensively. He said, we know the BC Lions and what they like to do offensively. We feel we can force them to beat us and earn it. Then we're not going to give them anything easy. And that's what he's done so far today. He doesn't want to give them any cheap ones.
John Pancratz was unable to hang on as Dan Bass was back defending. The Toronto Argonauts, in case you missed it earlier today, defeated Winnipeg 19-3 to win the Eastern title. They'll be here for the Grey Cup game next Sunday. And at halftime, we'll go to that victorious Toronto dressing room and hear from head coach Bob Obilovich and the quarterbacking star of the Argos, Gilbert Renfro. So stay with us at the break. We're 51 seconds away with Edmonton in front 21-7. Stuart Hill, the leader of that Edmonton sack attack, drops Roy DeVault back at the 35-yard line.
Stuart Hill was one-on-one with the offensive tackle John Blaine, and Blaine just didn't block him. We said in the opening that when the defense wins football games for you, you got to get the sackers involved, and he's been their leader all year.
Well, in that July 18th game, BC won by a score of 26-18. It looked as though Edmonton had the Lions right where they wanted them in the final 4 minutes, but Roy DeWalt put together a drive starting at his own 1-yard line that led to a touchdown.
That was a great drive. You know, I think in that game, he was our MVP for that football game, mainly because of that drive. He marched them down the field when he had to do it and came up with the touchdown to win the football game.
Well, we talked about the Eskimos wanting to get the crowd out of this ball game. It's almost like a morgue in here right now.
Yeah, they got him out of the ball game. I don't think they're going to get him back until the third quarter either, because with only 37 seconds left, they better hang on and not let him hit another bomb.
Joe Farragelli protesting that some time went off that clock. The Edmonton Eskimos have called a timeout. Next Sunday, Grey Cup 87 comes your way on the CBC television network from the West Coast. It all begins with countdown beginning at 3:30 Eastern time, and then the game itself. The Toronto Argonauts against either the BC Lions or the Edmonton Eskimos. And at the moment, the Edmonton Eskimos definitely have the upper hand in this Western Division final. kick by Pasaglia. Williams back at his own 25. He gets outside of Paul Nastasiuk, but can't escape the clutches of Todd Wiseman, and he is stopped at the 33. 25 seconds remaining. A good 49-yard kick and a 13-yard run back.
Well, 25 seconds left. I think the Eskimos will be happy now. I don't think they'll take too many chances. Set them 4 big guys up front and just tell them don't let anything through there, and then just get down and cover. Don, I think we should congratulate the McGill Redmen.
Yes, indeed. They scored the big upset in collegiate football, winning yesterday's Vanier Cup by defeating the University of British Columbia Thunderbirds.
I don't think anybody was expecting it to be that type. I know I wasn't.
UBC was something like a 14 or 20-point favorite, depending on who you talk to prior to the game, and they were slaughtered by the McGill Redmen.
That's why they play the games. If the favorite team always won, why play, You get a bunch of young guys together to think they can win, they got a shot at it, and then they went out and proved it. But they did a good job and a good year for them.
Well, one favored team has already gone down to defeat this afternoon, and another is in big trouble. The BC Lions, with those final seconds ticking off the clock to end the first half, trailing by 14. 21-7 is the score. And Joe Faragelli will be in a happy frame of mind, I would think, as he heads to the dressing room here at halftime. Just 5 seconds remaining. And his team has done exactly what he hoped they would be able to do offensively under the direction of that man, Matthew Dunnigan.
I think everybody was expecting Dunnigan to run a little bit, throw the short passes and do all that. But what he has done is he just stepped back and said, if you're going to get up close to the line of scrimmage and you think you can cover us one-on-one, well, you go ahead and try it. Because he says, if you bother Stephen Jones will run by you and Kelly will turn you inside out. So you're exactly right. He's done exactly what he wanted to do.
5 seconds remaining. Dunnigan felt he should have stayed in there to run off those final 5 seconds. But Joe Faragelli has opted to send out the punting team. I think if he had left the offensive unit out there, the BC Lions would have called time, and then they would have had a problem.
They did call time, Don, and what he was afraid of is they wouldn't kill 5 seconds to give one more play, which would be a field goal.
Larry Crawford takes it at the 45. He gets a hold on the sideline. Good tackle by Milson Jones to prevent him from going all the way. And that fine effort by Larry Crawford will go for naught, as that is the final play of the first half, with the Eskimos in front by 14.
The CFL on CBC. It's a whole new ball game.
CBC Sports presents Inside the CFL.
We're at the half of the Western Final with the Eskimos in front of the BC Lions, 21-7. But let's turn our attention east for a few moments. Try and do a halftime show sometime in the middle of a paper airplane contest and see how tough it is. As I was saying, let's turn our attention east. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers have been virtually unbeatable at home over the last 3 years, but not so today when it mattered the most in the Eastern Final. The Argos claimed a 19-3 victory over the Bombers. Argos led 12-3 in the fourth quarter. The play that secured victory for the Argos was this one. The much-feared turnover. Darryl Sampson fumbled. The recovery was made by the core of the Argo defense, Doug Landry. The Argo defense lived up to its reputation today. And that set it up for a short yardage touchdown by the Argos' Tony Johns, and the Argos went on to a 19-3 win. So the Toronto Argonauts are making plans now to travel to Vancouver next week to play either the Eskimos or Lions in the Grey Cup. It's a joyous Argo locker room, and let's go there now and join John Evans.
Thanks very much, Scott. The Argonauts are indeed off to the Grey Cup. Standing by, Bob Obilovich, the Argonaut head coach. Bob, did you dream you'd hold the Bombers' offense to 3 points?
I really didn't think that we could keep them to that few points. I thought we could keep them under 20 and that our offense would have to score at least 3 touchdowns and that would be good enough to win. But our defense has got so much character and so much emotion, and with all the things they were talking about before the game and all that crap, I was glad to see our players do their talking on the field.
Your team appeared quietly confident about this game.
Well, we felt we could win the football game if we went out and played well. You know, we've got some pretty good young players on this team. It's by far the most talented team I've had since I've been in Toronto overall. We're missing a couple guys compared to our '83 Grey Cup team. You know, we don't have a Terry Greer who caught 2,000 yards and 113 catches in a season. We don't have that guy in our team, but we got a lot of other players that make up for that guy, and it's a fun bunch to coach because they play the game the way it should be played, and they really want to win together.
Congratulations. Good luck next week.
Thanks a lot. We'll be there.
Okay. Gilbert Renfro, come on in here for a second. Congratulations on the victory today.
Thank you very much.
Those short passes were murder on the Bombers' defense. Tell me about that game plan.
I think it was a matter of controlling the football in the third quarter against the win, and we were using that. I think the coaches did a terrific job of calling plays that we were able to execute against the win, where the win wasn't a big factor for us.
You got good protection. Your offensive line did a job for you today.
They did a terrific job, and they had to be commended on a terrific job they did, and I think that any quarterback could have success behind an offensive line like that.
You haven't played a lot this year. Did you feel comfortable out there? You had the game plan under control?
Definitely. I felt really in control as far as the game plan and the flow of the game and the tempo. I think that we control the football. We control the tempo of the game, so to speak. Their offense didn't do anything too much. I think I really felt good out there today.
Congratulations. Good luck next week.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That's a word from the Argonaut dressing room. Scott, back to you in Vancouver.
All right, John, thank you very much. And the Argos will arrive in Vancouver midweek. They no doubt have turned their attention now to this Western Final. In about 90 minutes, they'll know who they'll play next week in the 75th Grey Cup game. Inside the CFL returns on your Grey Cup network, coast to coast.
Turnovers, but BC can't put it in the end zone.
Well, that's the name of the game, and we're going to show you just one highlight. It's been the story of the first half. There's been 3 great throws by Dunnigan for long touchdowns. Here's the third one. Dunnigan to Stephon Jones, who's caught 2 of the touchdowns. Kelly getting the other one. Man coverage, one-on-one with Keith Gooch is no contest. Jones has great speed for a former quarterback.
Well, that touchdown could prove to be the backbreaker. An 80-yarder coming in the final minute of play, and a 21-7 Edmonton halftime lead. Let's rejoin Scott.
Well, Don, next Sunday, the road to the Grey Cup stops right here at BC Place, and we'll have an unprecedented, uninterrupted 5.5 hours of Grey Cup coverage, beginning with our countdown show. That starts at 3:30 Eastern with Brian Williams. Then at 5:30 Eastern, Don Whitman, Ron Lancaster, Steve Armitage, and I will have the 75th Grey Cup game. Well, there are 2 quarters of football left for the Eskimos and Lions to decide who will meet the Argos next week in the Grey Cup final. The second half kickoff is next on your Grey Cup network, coast to coast.
The CFL on CBC. Brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Breweries. The CFL, it's the game around here. Petro-Canada dealers and agents. Our energy is Canada. And by Air Canada, celebrating 50 years of serving Canadians at home and around the world.
Well, in the first half, Matt Dunnigan only completed 5 of 13. Not much of a percentage, but not bad for distance. 192 yards. That's almost 40 yards per throw as far as completions go. And that has been the difference in the first half. Dunnigan with a touchdown strike of 32 yards early to Brian Kelly, and then the 80-yard completion late to Stephon Jones. As a matter of fact, he has only completed passes to 2 receivers, Kelly and Jones. Roy DeWalt has a better percentage, 9 of 18, but he has only been able to pick up 73 yards. Edmonton kicking off to BC to start the second half, and this is Larry Crawford from the 20-yard line. Finding a hole down the sidelines and then cutting back into the field. And all the way to the
You know, Donald, when they showed the shot of Roy DeWalt, I was just thinking that he better get him in the end zone early in the third quarter to get back on track. Larry Crawford has given him the opportunity to do that with that zigzag kick return of his. A good job of blocking, and they are on the 40-yard line. I think, again, I've said it before, but they better put it in the end zone now.
50 yards on the return by Larry Crawford. It's 1st and 10 BC. They are at the 40-yard line. A reverse with Jan Karinci. He couldn't go wide. He had to cut back inside as the Eskimos defended that one well. John Mandarich forced it back, and then Craig Schaefer finished the job. We talked about those passing statistics in the first half. Here are the other statistics from that opening 30 minutes. 2 turnovers committed by the Edmonton Eskimos, but the Lions really weren't able to capitalize. DeWalt dumps it off to Krause, and he won't get a first down. Edmonton has defended very, very well. And talking about defenders, Bernie Glier is having a problem. The BC linebacker having that right ankle looked at.
Got the guard. Got the guard, left guard. Yeah. Return left. Yeah. Shoot him left. Turn right, shoot him. Block, go.
Well, they're not talking about directions out of the parking lot when they said shoot left, turn right.
That's what I was wondering what they're talking about there for a minute.
Lou Pasaglia missed earlier from 48 yards. This from 43 yards. It's wide. And Henry Williams will get it out of the end zone. As a matter of fact, with that ball down the sidelines, he could have gone a long way, but he ran out of room. He is stopped at the 37 by Anthony Parker.
Williams is such an impact player. That's what coaches like to refer to him as. And what they mean is he can go the distance from anywhere, and he has such an impact on his football club. Yeah, the rest of those guys love blocking for him because they know it doesn't take much for him to go 100 yards with it. We saw him do that earlier this year on a missed field goal, 100 yards. But the man we saw first, Larry Donovan's got to be really discouraged right now.
49 yards, the return by Williams. 1st and 10, Edmonton. Brian Kelly on the sidelines gets away initially from Andre Francis and then is stopped by Larry Crawford up at the 44. They rule that's where he stepped out of bounds, and Dunnigan still has only been able to get the ball to 2 receivers, Kelly and Jones.
Short side of the field. You don't see Francis in the picture. He's sitting a little bit deep in his zone. React on the throw. Couldn't bring him down, and Kelly escapes and gets 7 yards. So the BC defense once again are going to have to shut him down and give that offense another chance.
Francis said against Kelly, you have to be a pest all day. You hit him in the head, hit him in the face, do a lot of things. He said he's got a few tricks of his own, like pushing off. So you have to try and combat his tactics with some of your own. So far this afternoon, it's been pretty much of a standoff for Andre Francis and Kelly. Nelson Jones, the ball carrier. A first down for Edmonton.
Yeah, the big catch that Kelly made really was the other side of the field, and it was off of a different kind of action. It wasn't one-on-one coverage, but they're going to have those kind of battles, but that's what football is all about, whether it's in the secondary or up front. If you beat the man across from you enough and you do it consistently across your line, you'll win.
Neither side has really been able to establish a ground game. Just 41 rushing yards for BC in the first half, 37 for Edmonton. 1st and 10, the Eskimos at their own 48-yard line. Dunnigan was looking for Stephan Jones as he was streaking down those sidelines. The throw was just a little too far ahead of him.
But the right place to throw it against that particular defense. Keith Gooch is holding in the flat, making sure that he can't get the ball to Jones short, and then Bird's going to come deep behind him to take the long one away. So what does he do? Throw it right in the middle of him. It's just that Jones just couldn't get there, but it's the ideal place to throw against that defense.
2nd and 10, Roy DeWalt, who has been unable to put the ball into the end zone despite having good field position to start a number of drives. Dunnigan's been able to put it in the end zone, and he just misses in putting it there again. Looking deep for Stephan Jones, and he really has been flying past Keith Gooch, who plays that right corner.
You know, Keith Gooch got to be wondering what he's ever done to Matt Dunnigan, because every time there's been a big play, they're trying to go to him. And that ball was just fluttering on, but look how much room and how far he is by him. Just a little bit too far.
Secondary coaches wince when they see that type of separation between the receiver and the deep back.
You know, they start to wince when they know they're in man coverage one-on-one, but then when they see the ball thrown that far, you know they're scared.
Jerry Cowrick in his first game in the Dome has kicked the ball well. He gets it high, good hang time. Blake Marshall, who really operates well on those special teams, limits the return to just 3 yards after a 53-yard kick. Larry Crawford, number 28, sitting on the bench, was shaken up on that last punt return, and while he hasn't received the recognition of his Edmonton counterpart, he has outperformed the Gizmo this afternoon, 106 yards on returns. And if they are forced to play without Larry Crawford, that could definitely hurt the BC Lions. Right, a won't throw deep is intercepted. No, Stanley Blair appeared to have it. He was unable to hang on as it was thrown for Williams. Stuart Hill was pressuring quarterback Roy DeWalt, and Stanley Blair, who came into the league this year, and early in the season a lot of teams tried to pick on him, has certainly played well in defending against Byron Williams this afternoon. And of course he is the Shenley nominee as Rookie of the Year, going against Gil Fennerty of Toronto.
Not only is he a corner, but he's on the left corner, which is where most right-handed quarterbacks like to work.
Ray Krause with a good move to get the first down.
You're exactly right, Don. That's a big move of Krause to get it, because they'll give him that 5-yard pass, come up and make the tackle. But watch the move. DeWalt's going to pass. The backs don't have anyone to block. It's a zone. That means they get out in a pattern. Now there's the move on Danny Bass, and he gets right inside. He doesn't care what happens now as long as he keeps the possession to keep this drive alive, because they got him.
After being beaten, Danny Bass didn't do a bad job of recovering to get back into the play. It's easy to understand why he was named the all-star linebacker. Sandusky nowhere to go. Howard is there, Bass is there, Benjamin is there.
When you try to bring that slot back, in this case, out to block on the corner on Ron Howard or Steve Benjamin, all the defender does is follow him. See what? When he goes back inside, the slot back comes out, but Howard now is in a position. What you want is to make the block on him and no one else there. I like to move the last one to spin away from there, because Danny Bass is coming. I'll take my chances with Benjamin.
2nd and 9, deep over the head of Jim Sandusky. And now some pushing and shoving involving Larry Ruck and Ray Krause, the Edmonton linebacker and the BC running back, but cooler heads prevail. Larry Donovan has to be concerned about the inability of Roy DeWalt to get the ball to his big play man as far as the Lion passing attack is concerned. Jim Sandusky on the year, 8 receptions this afternoon, just 2.
Right now, Carinchi's the guy that's made whatever plays the Lions have made for him offensively, but that's not good enough. You got to get those big play guys involved.
Well, they've surrounded the Gizmo almost every time he has fielded a punt. Good downfield coverage by the BC Lions. 30 yards the kick and the loss of 2. Rob Moretto, working on the special teams for the BC Lions, was in on the tackle. Tracy Ham with the clipboard, the number 3 quarterback in Joe Faraghelli's camp. He's happy with the way his number 1 man has performed so far today.
I think we'll see him right through. I don't think there'll be any changes today. Not the way this game's going.
Little swing pass to Milson Jones. He did a good job of picking up 3 yards and not losing anything before being trapped by Walter Ballard. Let's bring in Scott.
Don, when it's your last game, you have to play with pain, I guess, and so Bernie Glier and Larry Crawford will. Glier has sprained his ankle. They've retaped him. He's going to try it. And Larry Crawford, he was down a few moments ago. The problem was a hip pointer. That's a very painful injury, but he's not going to stay out.
No, that won't bother him until tomorrow. Now, tomorrow he'll have a little bit of trouble moving around, but right now he's okay. The soreness hasn't set in, and he's back in there.
2nd and 6, Edmonton. Donegan escapes the initial pressure. And he'll run for a first down, and that's
what Matt Dunnigan does so well. If you don't keep him inside, as Larry Donovan said, we have to stay in our lanes trying to cover Matt Dunnigan. And he can duck and bob and weave and get away from you, and he burned them on that one.
Boy, he sure did. I mean, you keep in your lanes for a reason, and that's to not allow Dunnigan to use his athletic ability to escape tacklers and get outside. The only problem when you stay in your lanes is sometimes you get blocked, and then he's had the opportunity to go deep. So that's why a running quarterback is very valuable in this league.
8:15 remaining in the third quarter. The handoff to Skinner. He picked up maybe 2 yards before being stopped by Kevin Konar. The Eskimos leading 21-7, using the big play to advantage.
Saying just what goes on over in the field. Sometimes Andre Francis is right up in Brian Kelly's face. In that particular replay, you see he's about 12, 14 yards away. You don't do the same thing all the time, because if you do, they'll get onto it.
Well, you have to vary your attack both defensively and offensively, and Dunnigan is going over the middle. And the first catch of the afternoon for Marco Sincar, and a first down, Edmonton.
Sincar came off the football straight downfield and was going to get hit by a defender and just jumped around him and found the open area.
The Eskimos with the #1 offense against the #1 defense, and that offense is winning the battle so far. First and 10, Edmonton. The ball is at the 20-yard line. Dunnigan throwing for Stephan Jones. Over his head, he ran out of room. And John Elmer was coming from his linebacking position. Dunnigan got it away just in time.
That's just what I was looking at down there. When Dunnigan sprinted to his left, Elmer's going to come from the bottom of the screen. Now, Matt knows he's there. He has to see him. He steps, makes the throw, takes the hit. You got to do that sometimes. You don't like it, but you do it.
As we have said before, and I'm sure most football fans across the country are aware, John Elmer, the son of Ed Elmer, the former outstanding defensive back and punter with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. There's the screen to Johnstone. He fumbles the football. Who's got it?
They're going to rule this one down.
They're ruling that he was down.
I think if we get a replay of it, Don, we're going to see him clearly hit the ground with the ball in his possession, and it's going to bounce out on impact. And you know the rule. The ground can't cause you to fumble. See him coming. Konar cuts the legs out of him, and when he hit the ground, he had the ball in his arm.
Yeah, you talk about that rule about the ground not making you fumble. We were constantly reminded about that rule by a former broadcasting colleague, and now a general manager who will be leading his team into the Grey Cup next Sunday.
I wonder who that could be.
I'm not going to tell you, but his initials are Leo Cahill.
Well, we heard about that a lot.
A 22-yard field goal try by Jerry Cowrick. Watch the way Blake Dermott gets the ball back. Dunnigan doesn't even have to turn the laces.
Well, I'll tell you, a holder appreciates that. We'll talk about that later.
It's 24-7 with 6:07 left in the third quarter. The Edmonton Eskimos leading by 17, and they're 21 minutes and 7 seconds away from a return visit to the Dome next Sunday in the Grey Cup against the Toronto Argonauts. Mel Bird on this kickoff return, upset at the 35-yard line by Brian Warren. That was a 15-yard run back after a 55-yard kick. You know, Ron, I mentioned about center Blake Dermott getting the ball back and Dunnigan not even having to turn the laces. That is not an accident. They work on that.
Well, it's just a case of Blake Dermott wanted to be the best at his job. You know, when you get the ball back to the quarterback and he doesn't have to spin it to find the laces and get him away from the kicker, because kickers hate the laces. Boy, it's great for timing. You get the ball off faster and everything. It's just great.
Sidelines, and they are ruling that he made the catch, and John Pancratz has a BC first down.
He was close to the sidelines and over there in front of that BC bench. We weren't really certain whether he had managed to keep the feet in bounds or not.
You see him fake that little hitch screen to the left, and Pancras just starts deep. If he can get deep, he goes. If he can't, then he sits on the sideline and you throw it at him.
1st and 10 from the 54-yard line. Ray Krause gets away initially from Larry Ruck, but Danny Bass comes over to assist and puts Krause to the turf.
You know, it's a couple times today, it's looked to me like they've had the opportunity to maybe go to Byron Williams or Sandusky deep down to the middle. But what the Eskimos are doing, they got number 11, Junior Robinson, just sitting back in there waiting on it.
I can guarantee you that Jerry Cowrick wouldn't be dumping water on his head if he was playing on the prairies on this afternoon.
Not in Edmonton at this time of year, I don't think so. If he did, he'd never get his helmet back on.
2nd and 5. DeWalt does not get a chance to throw with Stu Hill, bringing him down for a loss back at the 49.
Well, we saw Stu Hill go around John Blaine when he was on that side. He switches to this side, and this time Jim Mills can't control it. It's just speed and power. Here he comes, the top of the screen. Number 66 works on Stuart Hill. Just couldn't do it. He just overpowered him, shoved the offensive tackle back to where he could get close enough, then grab the quarterback.
Well, Stuart Hill might be performing for the added benefit of some friends who have made the trip up from Washington to watch him play. That's where he played his college ball. Tom Richards brings it back out to the 36-yard line with 4:27 left in the 3rd quarter, and the Eskimos in front 24-7. .427 remaining in the 3rd quarter. The Eskimos with the ball at their own 37-yard line. Still plenty of time left, of course, for the BC Lions, but they have not been able to put it in the end zone, and that has been their big problem. Nelson Jones is dropped by Walter Ballard at the 35.
I think the BC Lions have figured out, you know, they know how to play this game defensively. On 1st down, play the run because they want to get the time to come off the clock. And 2nd down, go get Dunnigan. But I've been wondering when we're going to see Holloway. I kind of think that he's going to get his shot. I'd give him a chance anyway, right now, until they get the football.
He did not see much action this season. Most of it since Larry Donovan took over as head coach. Dunnigan was looking deep. Marco Sincar had been bumped at the line of scrimmage, and I think that may have been the target, but Dunnigan, facing a blitz, had to get rid of it in a hurry.
Got the one-on-one coverage. There's no reason for him to take the sack. Just lay it down the field. No harm. Threw it over top everybody's head.
3:34 remaining in the 3rd quarter. 24-7 is the score. The Edmonton Eskimos leading. And I'm sure right now the Eskimos must be having some problems with those signals because of the loud noise. The crowd trying to become a factor here at BC Place Stadium. But the Eskimos, by putting points on the board, simply won't let them. There's a penalty flag as Larry Crawford picks it up, and I think Brian Warren will be called for encroaching upon that 5-yard area after a kick of 40 yards by Jerry Cowrick.
No yard. Edmonton number 38. 1st down.
Well, 2 weeks from tonight, an all-new movie special brings Anne Shirley back into our lives. Megan Follows headlines a spectacular cast in Anne of Green Gables. The sequel, 2 weeks from tonight at 7:30, 8 o'clock in Newfoundland on CBC television. Best on the box. And Conrad Holloway, as we anticipated when we saw him warming up, is the quarterback at the 49-yard line. 1st and 10. Holloway dumps it off to Anthony Parker. Junior Robinson made the stop.
Not a bad way to open for him. When he comes into the football game, people are anticipating big things. The Eskimos are expecting maybe to go deep early, but we've said on many times it's important to complete the first pass. So he comes with the screen off the rollout, dumps it underneath the Parker, and you see them out front blocking for him, and Parker just runs. Tim Burnham and Dan Hurley along with Sinclair get a big hole.
Hand off to Anthony Parker, and he's down to the 35. A gain of 7, stopped by James Zachary.
Now Holloway will give you a little different look than DeWalt did. DeWalt's a drop-back kind of thrower. It will run if he has to. Holloway will sprint you out wide to one side, come back, throw the screen off and things like that. That can open up the running game for Parker. Or we're going to see that pass again that they've tried to throw twice. Let's see.
Most of his career spent in the Eastern Division with Ottawa and primarily Toronto. Condredge Holloway gives to Anthony Parker, and he'll be close to a first down. Larry Ruck pulled the feet out from under Parker, who has handled the ball on 3 consecutive plays. 1:35 is the time remaining in the third quarter. This one apparently is close enough for a measurement.
24-7. You know, you're down, you're trailing by 17, but you don't worry about it. You got a lot of time. You can win the football game, but you got to get started sometime, and that offense hasn't done it. This is a big measurement for them.
Just a little short. But as that man observes and thinks to himself, he'll go for it.
No time to start making crazy moves. You got to get this. See those linebackers, all they do is read the flow and get to the action. Step up in the hole. You saw Junior Robinson up from his safety position as an extra linebacker on short yardage.
Holloway keeps. He'll get it, but not by much. Joe Farragelli keeping an anxious eye on that clock. His team leads 24-7. 1:15 remains in this third quarter. In regular season play, the Lions won both games 26-18 on July 18th here at BC Place Stadium, and in the showdown for first place at Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton on November 1st, 33-32.
You know the quarterback's going to have the football. I thought Holloway had a little trouble with that snap from the center, and it looked like it almost got away from him, but he was going straight ahead, so there's no problem. When you back out of there with it, now you can drop it, but he just took it with him, made the first down. They're in 3-down territory. No more field goals now.
1st and 10, the BC Lions under the direction of Condredge Holloway from the 32-yard line. Holloway was looking over the middle for Jan Carinci, incomplete. And Stuart Hill dumped Condredge Holloway on the turf. Holloway and Carinci, of course, a combination that was successful for the Toronto Argonauts in their Grey Cup triumph of '83.
He was hoping to hit Carinci. He had him open over the middle. He had to step inside of a blitz by the middle linebacker and just escaped that one, and then Stuart Hill threw him to the ground pretty good.
The Toronto Argonauts, in case you missed it, earlier today winning the Eastern Division title with a 19-3 triumph over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Holloway has time. Incomplete.
He had time to throw it. You see who hit him? Stuart Hill again. Took that short rollout to his left and stopped and wanted to look backside. And when you do that, we saw Brett Williams get Dunnigan. This time we see Hill get Holloway.
Well, over the last couple of years, Holloway has taken a lot of physical abuse. His body has paid the price for standing in there trying to complete those throws.
In that year that he won the Shenley Award with the Argonauts in that run-and-shoot offense, boy, the quarterback takes a pounding in that offense, and I think he did a great job.
The direct snap to John Pankratz, and he is going to be stopped by Dan Kearns at the 30-yard line.
You know, I'm going to tell you something. You know what happened? That play wasn't called. That was a direct snap to Pasaglia because they sent Ulmer out for a pass, and they sent another receiver for a pass. The center centered the ball to the wrong person. I'll bet you.
I think Larry Donovan is probably going to try and find out right there what happened.
See, Pankratz is going to have to block for him. I don't think this is a design run. I think this was going to Pasaglia, because I saw Pasaglia go right up and talk to the center. 3rd and 10, you better throw it. Don't run it.
Incomplete, intended for Marco Sinkar.
Konar and Stuman this time put Dunnigan on his back. They don't hurt quite as much when you look up at the clock and see a 24-7 lead and no time on the clock.
And that is the end of the 3rd quarter. So the Edmonton Eskimos are 15 minutes away from facing the Toronto Argonauts in Grey Cup 87. "15 minutes remains in this Western Division final. The winner to face the Toronto Argonauts next Sunday in the Grey Cup. And we hope you'll be joining us from coast to coast on the CBC television network for Grey Cup coverage. It all begins at 3:30 Eastern Time with countdown. Second and 10 to start the 4th quarter from the 30-yard line. Dunnigan looking to the sidelines, and the Edmonton Eskimo bench trying to assist the officials in ruling that he made the catch, and he did.
He made the catch, and they're going to get 15 more yards tacked onto it. John Ulmer.
Roughing the passer, BC number 31.
Well, okay, they called Konar, but they both drilled him. He got outside, and when the quarterback gets out, you're going to see the middle linebacker come after him on a direct line, but watch the hit that he takes after this ball is gone. Yeah, you got to call those. I mean, you can't let the quarterback get hit like that.
So with the completion to Stefan Jones and the penalty that is assessed against Kevin Konar, that moves the ball into BC territory down at the 48-yard line. Well, this is our view from the vantage point in the press box here at BC Place Stadium, and we hope you'll be joining us next Sunday for the Grey Cup game. Rick House makes the catch, his first of the day, for a gain of 9.
Just put Brian Kelly outside and let him run down the field, and that'll take Andre Francis with him, and then House just goes out into the open area. Nobody covered him. He makes the catch.
Rick House plans on spending the offseason back in Winnipeg, team with which he came into the CFL. He's going to continue some studies in Winnipeg during the winter months. Second and 1, the short yardage offense, and Milson Jones has more than enough to keep this drive alive. It will be 1st and 10, and they spot the ball at the 32-yard line. I'll make it the 33.
Well, the main thing is, I don't think it matters now which yard line it is. They're starting to take control of the line of scrimmage, and this is the big part of the game for that offensive line. This is when they know they can win it. If they can just block, we'll run the football. Time goes a lot faster.
Dunnigan hits Brian Kelly. He's got another first down. He stayed away from Kelly most of this second half, but when he needs a big play, you can be guaranteed almost that he'll go to number 70.
Boy, he came right underneath. He crossed with the wide receiver and come right back down into the middle. And as we said many times, wide receivers aren't real crazy about going in there, but they will, and they'll make the catch for you.
12:40 is the time remaining. 1st and 10, Edmonton at the 18-yard line of the BC Lions. Dunnigan rolling to his right, ducks away from pressure, throws complete to Brian Kelly. Down at the 1.
Coaches go a little bit crazy when quarterbacks do this. That's a naked bootleg, and naked means you don't take any blocking with you. And I think they're going to call interference on Andre Francis. He would not allow Kelly to get open. Dunnigan survived the rush and hit him.
Forward pass interference. BC number 14. Decline. First down.
All right, watch Dunnigan. He makes the fake. Now he gets outside. He gets the rush. This is a good move right here. He stops, ducks back inside. Kelly is open now. By now, Kelly has gotten away from Francis. Francis had a good hold of him for about 12 yards.
First and goal from the 2-yard line with 12:19 remaining. The BC Lions made a big comeback in the final regular season meeting on November the 1st at Commonwealth Stadium. But if the Eskimos punch it in here, and the odds certainly indicate that they should do it as Dunnigan gets into the end zone, I think it's going to be just a little too much for the Lions to overcome. But there's been no signal of a touchdown. I think they ruled that he touched down at the 1.
Yeah, they're not going to give him the touchdown. He's showing them. I was in there. He said, hey, boy, I got in there. Now, how many times do I have to score? But you're going to get another shot at it.
Everybody refers to him as Matt Dunnigan. When Jackie Parker was head coach, he always called him
Matthew.
Second and goal. Penalty flag flies as Dunnigan tried to get into the end zone, and again, no signal. We'll wait for Jake Ireland to explain it.
Offside. BC number 14. First down.
Well, that should almost guarantee that they will get into the end zone, because with that offside call, it is first and goal from the 1. Gary Dirchik, the man wearing the headphones on the left, a former head coach for a brief period with the Montreal Alouettes. He and Joe Farragelli have something in common. They were both coaches for a brief time.
That's what I'm saying, brief. Is he going to sneak it again?
Well, he gives it to Milson Jones, and he's got his second touchdown of the afternoon as he runs over Greg Stuman in getting into the end zone. Again, there's a penalty flag. The offside call against Andre Francis declined as the Edmonton Eskimos really take control of this ball game, leading by a margin of 30-7. Chris Skinner, Milson Jones, Chris Johnstone, and Blake Marshall, the 4 Canadian running backs employed by the Edmonton Eskimos, and Coach Joe Farragelli is not reluctant to rotate them.
No, I think the Eskimos have had that philosophy a while. They get everybody into the game, and that's great.
The point after by Jerry Carrick, and with 11-11 still to play, the Edmonton Eskimos appear to be Grey Cup bound, leading by 24 points.
Milson Jones again, just on that straight lead block behind Blake Marshall, 22. He goes in pretty easy. Why not? You got to be happy.
Call against Andre Francis declined as the Edmonton Eskimos. Matt Dunnigan on the headphones, getting some advice from upstairs, but he doesn't need much help in his play selection today. Mel Bird trying to weave through a couple of Edmonton tacklers, and there are penalty flags as Bird also goes down after a 9-yard run back. I think an illegal block will be charged against BC.
Illegal block. BC number 77.
Pushed him right in the back, and the referee standing right there looking at it. It's pretty hard to get away with it. I don't like their chances now. You know, DeWalt was in there most of the game, and he didn't get anything going, and Holloway's in there now, and you know, that's a whole new rhythm. Everything has to start clicking for him immediately. He's only got 11 minutes, and he's trailing by 24. He's got a big, it's a tall order.
First and 10, the ball at the 18-yard line. Holloway dumps it off to Anthony Parker, and Parker has a gain of 7, maybe 8 yards before being stopped by Danny Bass.
Well, the Eskimos are going to get those linebackers back deep now. They're going to force them to throw it underneath. And what he's got to hope for is that a guy like Parker can break one.
Holloway coming into the ball game, replacing starter Roy DeWalt late in the third quarter. 10:20 is the time remaining in the fourth quarter, and it's Anthony Parker up close to the 30-yard line. That should be a first down.
Second down and 2, trailing 24. I think I may have even thrown then and figured the heck with it. When you're trailing 24, you may as well go all out and let's start throwing this football all over the lot.
I wonder if Donovan will come back with Roy DeWalt. DeWalt, of course, is the man who can put it into the end zone quickly. He has that gun for an arm. But he has been stymied by the Edmonton Eskimos this afternoon. Carinci unable to hold as he is hit by Don Wilson.
When that ball's high and that receiver goes up in the air, he exposes the back. And boy, Wilson hit him just as that ball arrived. Watch the ball high up in the air before he can get it down to his chest and get control of it. Number 20 drills him.
A BC player down on one knee. Will be going out for one play at least. Defensively, the Edmonton Eskimos have improved upon the yardage they have yielded per game during regular season competition. And that's when you want them to come up with their best performance, is at playoff time.
This is the only game that really matters when you're in the Western Division. You know, you can go undefeated through 18 games, but if you don't win the Western Final, the season ends anyway. So if you're going to play your good football and best football, today's the day to get it started, this day and next week.
Ian Sinclair, the center, has been replaced by Peter Vandenbos. Sinclair's had quite a battle this afternoon with John Mandarich. The Juice, as he is nicknamed, and Sinclair had a lot of things to say about each other prior to the game today. Not all of it complimentary. From the shotgun again, 2nd and 10. The ball between the 28 and the 29-yard lines. Sandusky makes the catch. Stopped by Ron Howard, finally, but a big play for the BC Lions with 9:07 left in the game.
You know, we talk about a long pass and coverage and all this, but he's covered well. He's covered about as well as you can get on that side by Benjamin. The ball's thrown short. That's to the receiver's advantage because he takes a look, stops, and comes back, and the defender can't do it because he doesn't want to get beat deep, so he keeps running. That's a good effort, and he's the guy we talked about in the opening. They got to get the ball to the big play guys now.
That was a 31-yard gain. They come back to Sandusky again. This gain will be about 6 yards. Larry Ruck, a product of the Saskatoon Hilltops, making the tackle.
He didn't really want to come back that time. He had 3 receivers over here. He was looking for Carinci to go down and find that hole in the middle, and he wasn't open, so he came off to this late safety valve, in that case, Sandusky.
Byron Williams tried to go high for that Condredge Holloway throw. It will be 3rd down. John Mandarich was the man who was pressuring Condredge Holloway. Mandarich has the letters B-A-K-N-B-L-K on his license plate.
I give up.
Back in black.
Oh, okay.
He marches to a different drummer.
Yeah. When you're 6'4",
likes heavy metal.
Yeah, well, when you're 6'4", 265, you can do anything you want.
Ray Krause takes the hit, but he's got the 1st down, and that's the important feature of the play for the BC Lions. Larry Donovan has done a lot of pacing this afternoon, undefeated as a head coach out here on the West Coast. He took over from Don Matthews, who was fired after the Lions lost 3 straight games back on October 14th. However, right at this moment, it doesn't look as though that perfect record is going to be maintained. Only 7:50 remaining in the ball game. There's an injured Edmonton player, and we'll be back to tell you more right after this. 7:49 is the time remaining. 1st down play, Holloway from the shotgun formation. Completing the pass on the sidelines to Jan Carinci, close to a 1st down. Don Wilson was the player shaken up on that last series. Right now, let's go down to Scott.
Don, the reason why the Eskimos are playing the Lions right now, the reason why the Argos beat the Bombers this afternoon is this, the Grey Cup. It's what's at stake in next week's 75th Grey Cup game. Of course, 3/4 of a century has made necessary some major renovations. A new base has been added to the Cup this year. There is more than enough room for the 38 names that will go on it as a result of next week's game. In fact, there is room here for 21 more teams to have their names added to the Grey Cup. And right over here, ladies and gentlemen, is Ron Lancaster's name. Don?
1966, the year that Ron Lancaster put his name on the Grey Cup. Mo Simovich, our spotter, claims his name was engraved on that trophy. If his name is on it, it had to be done in Roman numerals.
That's what
Mo says 1939 is the year that he helped Winnipeg win a Grey Cup. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers had some designs on winning the 1987 Grey Cup. However, those plans went astray this afternoon as the Toronto Argonauts beat them in the Eastern Division Final 19-3. Here it's 31-7. Edmonton leading BC. BC gambling on third down, and Conrad Holloway keeps the drive alive.
I didn't understand it again. Like they had second down and 3, and they ran the football and didn't get the first down, and they have to sneak it on third down. The 2 yards is not any good to you anymore. Let's start throw it. It doesn't matter who catches it now. You got to put it in the air. 6 minutes left, you know. You've just about run out of time. There's no sense holding back. You can do that next year.
Forget that Edmonton defensive unit. Time is now the big enemy of the BC Lions.
That's for sure.
Parker is going to throw it. He lobs it into the end zone, and it's intercepted. Don Wilson, who was shaken up a little earlier, gets back into the ball game, and that should all but eliminate any Grey Cup hopes of the BC Lions. Following the game, we will be selecting the Canada Lease MVP. Canada Lease, a Canadian public company providing leadership in the world of high technology and capital equipment leasing. Canada Lease makes your money work better for you. Don Wilson's interception in the end zone gives the Eskimos the ball, 1st and 10 at the 25-yard line. 5:33 is the time remaining. Edmonton in control, 31-7. Right now, I think you'll see the Eskimos keep that ball on the ground. Chris Skinner, the ball carrier, picking up about 1. Donovan desperately needs the football, but the Eskimos don't want to give it away. At home, the Lions lost just once this year. That was a game to the Calgary Stampeders on the 11th of October. This second loss is the one that will put an end to the season.
It's the only one that matters. You know, I mean, like as we said earlier, regardless whether you go undefeated or not, you've got to play the final.
Clock running on 2nd and 9. And Dunnigan is running. Another first down for the Edmonton Eskimos. And again, they did not do that job of shutting down the lanes. And when you don't do that, Dunnigan is going to burn you, as Donovan suggested yesterday.
All right, let's take a look at it now. He's straight back. It looks like he's going to be buried. Pulls it down, faked them all. When he lifted the ball like he was going to throw, they all put their arms up, stop their charge, and he does what he does best, escape, runs right away from Andre Francis, but get down on the ground. They don't need him running around anymore.
4:15 is the time remaining. Dunnigan has carried 4 times this afternoon, and those runs have been very timely at critical stages in the ball game.
Well, he ran for 96 yards the last time they played, so you have to worry about his running ability. Today, they want him to throw it downfield. Well, he did that too. 3 of them for touchdowns and long ones.
Chris Johnstone fought, and I mean fought, for about 5 yards.
Well, they have those 4 running backs, and they alternate them quite a bit. When you get your chance to carry the football, you want to make every inch, so he was going after him.
Well, Dunnigan and the Edmonton Eskimos would like to erase some bitter memories from a year ago when they were buried 39-15 by the Hamilton Tiger Cats in the 1986 Grey Cup game, a game in which they were favored to win. .320 is the time left to play. On 2nd down, Dunnigan hands off to Chris Skinner, and he will be stopped short of a first down. So that means the punting unit will come out onto the field. The Edmonton Eskimos had made plans, regardless of the outcome this afternoon, to head home this evening, and then they will return to Vancouver on Wednesday.
Well, I think the reason for that is you sleep better at home, you work better in your own park. It's more conducive to the working environment that Coach Farragelli would want to create. Gives them a couple good days to rest up, make their game plans, get it in place, and then come back take part in the Grey Cup festivities, but it's great advantage when you can work in your own park.
Jerry Cowrick is letting that clock run, and he took it down to 1 second before calling for the football. He kicks it to Jim Sandusky. Sandusky had a full head of steam, but he was stopped by Blake Marshall. We have remarked before about the job he's done in those special teams, and the Western Ontario product comes through again with 2:45 left. Well, the BC Lions have never beaten the Edmonton Eskimos in postseason play, and that statistic isn't going to change this afternoon.
Not now. 31-7, 2:45. I like their chances of winning this one.
Reg Holloway dumps it off the screen pass to Anthony Parker, and there to make the tackle is Brian Warren.
That's what you got to do. Just keep throwing the screens till they come back up. They're sitting so deep. I don't think Condrich would be able to throw it far enough to get it over their heads right now. They're just sitting back saying, you do what you want. We're having a good time back here.
Well, the BC Lions had designs of being a host team playing in the Grey Cup game, but the Edmonton Eskimos certainly thwarted that idea this afternoon. Jan Carinci takes it to the 40-yard line, but you have to give the Lions credit. They're not going down without a fight.
Oh, no. Hey, if you're going to go out there, you don't want to be embarrassed. It's bad enough losing, but when you go out there, you're going to give everything you have for 60 minutes, and that's what a professional's supposed to do.
Well, it's going to be a busy week here on the West Coast. The competing teams arriving on Wednesday. We've got the Grey Cup pageant, the Shenley Awards, the Grey Cup parade, the Grey Cup dinner, all the other activities. And we'll have it for you on Grey Cup Countdown. The highlights of what has taken place. A look at the Grey Cup game itself. And it begins at 3:30 Eastern Time. And we hope you'll be joining us for coast-to-coast coverage on the CBC television network.
It's going to be a very interesting game next week. When you really think about how well the Argonauts have played, especially defensively, it's going to be the first time they've faced a quarterback that can run like Dunnigan, you know, upfield.
But those Toronto Argonauts have made tremendous strides since the start of the season. Since they broke training camp, there's no comparison to the team they fielded in game one to the one that won the title this afternoon.
Exactly
Steve Benjamin has an interception in the end zone as he took it away from Byron Williams, and he returns it to the 27-yard line. You know, in that Eastern Division, it was interesting. Winnipeg and Toronto opened the season with the Blue Bombers winning 38-30. They were a replacement game and team, actually, for the Montreal Alouettes. And then they finished the year with a reverse result, Toronto winning at Winnipeg Stadium.
Well, you know, when you get a bunch of young guys, as we talked about earlier, they play with so much enthusiasm, and they've got some great leadership. The only question mark everybody has talked about is their quarterbacking, because they've changed so many. The only reason they've done that is Renfro was hurt. But other than that, they are solid.
Well, I think Joe Farragelli is quite confident. This one is in the bank. Damon Allen is in there at quarterback, and he pitches to Chris Johnstone. And Johnstone gets it out to the 32-yard line with 1:56 remaining. This program is copyrighted and is strictly for the private use of our audience. Any reproduction, retransmission, or exhibition in whole or in part without the expressed written consent of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation is strictly prohibited. (31-7). The Eskimos lead it. The clock running as Damon Allen faces 2nd and 4. And he is dropped by Glenn Jackson for a loss back at the 22-yard line.
Very content. Just kick it. 1:35 left. You don't want anybody getting injured. That's why another reason where you better play full out, because that's when injuries occur. There's not one guy dressed in that gold down there that wants to miss next week's football game.
With Edmonton and Toronto playing in the Grey Cup game next Sunday, it will be the first meeting of these two teams since 1982. A miserable afternoon at CNE Stadium in Toronto as the Edmonton Eskimos won that ball game 32-16. That was Grey Cup number 5 in a row for that Edmonton dynasty. And then the following year, the Toronto Argonauts were Grey Cup champions, defeating the BC Lions right here at BC Place Stadium. Good high kick again by Jerry Cowrick. Sandusky takes it at the 51 and runs out of bounds in the grip of Junior Robinson. 1:08 is the time remaining. That was a 35-yard kick. We hope you'll be joining us next Sunday for Grey Cup 87. You'll see all the excitement of Grey Cup week, beginning with countdown at 3:30 Eastern Time, and the game itself 2 hours later. The Toronto Argonauts against the Edmonton Eskimos. The CBC, your Grey Cup network from coast to coast. At the conclusion of the game, Scott Oak, I'm sure, will be endeavoring to chat with head coach Joe Faragelli. I think there are going to be a lot of football players who have performed under that man, delighted to see Potts leading a team into a Grey Cup game. Ray Krause takes the throw and is driven back. Faragelli, of course, was part of that Edmonton dynasty, but as an assistant coach.
Well, that's for sure, you know, and like he said, everything kind of went pretty good. He got out to Edmonton this year. He lost a few games right away when he got there, but since that time, they have come on and played awful tough, and it's taken him a while to get his stamp on the football team.
Holloway can't escape the pressure of Stuart Hill. I believe that's quarterback sack number 3 for Hill, and Holloway is favoring his left knee.
Well, you know, he wears that big brace, and I think that's the one that it's on, and he was trying to escape, and when he was grabbed, he twisted trying to escape Hill, and he went down.
Interesting article the other day that you and I both read referring to those braces, and some doctors are disputing their value.
I question it a little bit. I've seen too many of the guys, Don, you and I have talked to him. Watch Hill. He grabbed him. Now right here, Conyers tries to step around it, and that other foot is anchored on the ground, and there's no give on artificial turf. Of course, it probably would have happened there on grass. But, you know, we've talked to a lot of players that wear those knee braces, and you know what? We've seen some ugly-looking braces, and the players are still playing.
Tonight on CBC television, Margot Kidder and Michael Sarrazin are trying to keep one step ahead of the CIA, the KGB, and the RCMP. That sounds like big trouble. Anyway, keeping track. A movie special tonight at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock Atlantic time, and 9:30 for you folks in Newfoundland. Tom Richards simply goes down as he saw 3 orange jersey coming at him. A 45-yard kick that time. 37 seconds is the time remaining. Damon Allen talking to Joe Faragelli. Now, what would he be asking with only 37 seconds remaining?
To make sure you run the 37 seconds off in 2 plays. That's the thing.
It's interesting that the Edmonton Eskimos, in the import-Canadian ratio, employ just 3 imports on offense. The bulk of their import players obviously line up on their defensive squad, and they have 1 import on their special teams, and that's Henry the Gizmo Williams. When you talk about the Canadian talent, they've got 4 strong running backs, one of them being the man who just lugged that football, Blake Marshall.
Well, you know, Blake Marshall, Coach Faragelli talked to us about him the other day, and we talked about him earlier in the broadcast, but he's got a great future ahead of him. You know, he was a Heck Crichton Trophy winner at Western Ontario, but special teams has been his strength this year, but when he's gotten the opportunity to play, he's played well.
Well, that's going to be a happy plane ride home tonight for the Edmonton Eskimos. First down out at the 35-yard line. Blake Marshall again. Joe Faragelli looking rather relaxed. Matt Dunnigan accepting congratulations from Stefan Jones. And at the conclusion of the game, and we are just 10 seconds away from it coming to an end, Scott Oak will be talking with Joe Faragelli. This should be the final play of the ball game as the Edmonton Eskimos move into the 1987 Grey Cup game against the Toronto Argonauts. 31-7 here, the final score, and 19-3, the Argos over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So the Edmonton Eskimos return for a second consecutive year to BC Place Stadium to play in the Grey Cup game, hoping the result this year will be different than it was a year ago when they were beaten by the Hamilton Tiger Cats 39-15. Joe Faragelli accepting congratulations from Larry Donovan and other members of that BC coaching staff, including Steve Barato right there, the former head coach of the Calgary Stampeders. Matt Dunnigan, the quarterbacking hero of this piece today for the Edmonton Eskimos. And Roy DeWalt, a disappointed BC Lion quarterback. Larry Donovan, the man who took over from Don Matthews late in the year and led his BC Lions to a first-place finish, extremely disappointed, naturally. So today, in the Eastern and Western divisions, the teams that finished atop the standings failed to advance to the Grey Cup game. It will be Toronto and Edmonton next Sunday. Selecting our Canada Lease MVP this afternoon was a difficult choice, but we settled on Stephan Jones. 5 receptions for 177 yards. And what might have been the game breaker late in the first half, an 80-yard touchdown catch for a major score that made it 21-7. So Stephan Jones is our Canada Lease MVP in this day of triumph for the Edmonton Eskimos. And now let's go down to the dressing room and Scott O.
And in the visiting locker room here at BC Place, the Edmonton Eskimos are celebrating their berth in the Grey Cup. Just the second team in 15 years to, visiting team, I should say, in 15 years to win the Western Conference Final. A few feet away from the celebration, outside the locker room, I am joined by the Canada Lease MVP player, Stephan Jones. Stephan, it was your touchdown that really silenced this crowd. It was the kind of touchdown that wide receivers dream about in a big game, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Earlier we had a shot at it, and it was a little short. And me and Matt got together and we worked it out, and he put it right there on the money for me.
I guess that's a leftover from one of the paper airplanes in the contest here at BC Place. But Stephan, I guess when you don't have to pull up a little bit, as you didn't, you were in full flight and headed for the end zone. That's what makes it ever so pleasing.
Yeah, that's what I feel. I feel if I can get behind the D-back and the ball is there, he's not going to catch me. So that's what I look for.
What about your domination of the BC Lions today? You were underdogs coming into this game, and most of the Eskimos thought that you should be. Did you expect to be able to dominate the Lions as you did?
Well, I figured, you know, people don't realize, but when you get that week off, you know, it gives you time to lose your wind. And I felt if we could get in front of them early and get them to change their game plan, that it would be to our, you know, our advantage, you know.
Your defense did a superb job today. Pressure on Roy DeWalt was really a big factor in this game.
Yeah, it was. They always play well, and you know, and they really were great out there today.
Now you've got a chance to atone for what happened in last year's Grey Cup game. I would suspect that's one of the most pleasing things about this victory.
Yeah, it is. I didn't get a chance to play last year. I got hurt in the first playoff game, and I'm really looking forward to it. You know, this one was kind of for JB and Coach Parker, and we got to go and finish the job now.
All right, Stephan Jones, our Canada Lease MVP award winner today. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott.
Let's go upstairs to Don Whitman and Ron Lancaster. Gentlemen.
Well, Scott, you talked about the fact that only twice in 15 years has the first-place team not made it to the Grey Cup game. Both times it's been the BC Lions who have failed to advance to the Grey Cup game in '84 and again this afternoon. And as we look at that Edmonton Eskimo dressing room, there's not really a great deal of celebration going on. They're not quite as boisterous as one would anticipate.
You know, I was just thinking about that. It's a very business-like dressing room right now, but after all, they wanted to go back this year and prove last year was a fluke. And right now, I would say they're just about, it's really surprising to not see them a little more excited.
Well, the Toronto Argonauts are going to be a different team that the Eskimos will be facing than the one they went up against earlier in the season. The Toronto Argonauts winning the Eastern Championship today 19-3 over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Many thought that it might be a Winnipeg BC Grey Cup game, but it is Toronto and Edmonton. And Edmonton coach Joe Faragelli is absolutely delighted, I'm sure, to be here.
Yes, Joe Faragelli is delighted, Don. He is with me now just outside the Eskimo locker room. Joe, there were a lot of things you saw from your football team today, passion included. I know we've joked about the overuse, perhaps, of this playing with passion business, but you saw that and more today from your Eskimos against the BC Lions.
Well, it might have been overused in what you're concerned, but as we're concerned, there's no such thing as overusing the word passion. That's the way you have to play the game. We said we're going to shut them out, and if they were going to score, they'd have to do it on offense. And they didn't score on offense. They never scored a touchdown on offense, and we didn't give them any on defense. So we were happy, and that's what we wanted to do, and we did it.
You got a great effort from your defense today. You were really tied up, Roy DeWalt.
Yeah, well, you know, we did the same thing last time we played in Commonwealth Stadium. Well, we did it for 59 minutes. You got one score at the end, and they beat us. But history was not going to repeat itself today.
Spectacular effort from Stuart Hill. I have not seen him so emotional recently.
Well, I think he's one of the guys you're talking about that played.
Did you just lose your audio?
Yeah, I lost it. I don't have any audio at all.
Now you're playing the Argos next week. What of that game? What are your plans heading into it?
I know we're going to play the Argos. I saw them shut out the Bombers, who I think is an explosive offensive team. So we're going to have our hands full, but we'll be prepared to meet them.
All right, Joe Faragelli, congratulations and thank you very much. We'll see you, of course, next Sunday in the Grey Cup game.
All right, thank you very much.
So a matchup then in the BC Lions leads to the Eskimos advancing to the 75th Grey Cup game next week, the result of a 31-7 victory over the BC Lions at BC Place this afternoon. Don't forget to be with us 1 week from today. That's Grey Cup Sunday on your Grey Cup network. 5.5 hours of uninterrupted, unprecedented coverage begins with our countdown show at 3:30 Eastern, followed by the game itself at 5:30 Eastern. Join Don Whitman, Ron Lancaster, Steve Armitage, and me for that. So we'll see you 1 week from Sunday back here at BC Place. Until then, we bid you goodbye from Vancouver.